Good evening, friends. Tonight we step into velvet and varnish, pearls and powder, and more questionable scents than a Tudor fairground. Before you get comfy, do the civilized thing. Tap like, subscribe if you truly enjoy this sort of time travel. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time the clock says you're side. Pull the curtains, let the kettle whisper, and breathe in, although perhaps not too deeply, because you've just woken up at Elizabeth's court. The good news: you're in the orbit of a queen whose legend glows brighter than her pearls. The bad news: your pores are sealed with lead, the floor has opinions, and the air is wearing yesterday. Congratulations, you've opened your eyes in the late 1570s, under carved beams and painted testers, in a bed more impressive than practical. A feather bed, yes, soft, generous, the envy of every yeoman, but still a nest beloved by uninvited lodgers with 6 legs and questionable manners. Your sheets are fine linen, stitched by nimble hands in the wardrobe of robes, laundered with lye, ash, and brace yourself aged urine, prized by foolers for its cleansing bite. Smell aside, it works. Mostly. Freshness here is a mood, not a guarantee. You sit up. Your head swims in the layered perfume of last night's pomanders, little orbs of clove-studded citrus, and the rushes underfoot, those decorative floor strews, sprinkled with dried herbs, rose petals if you're lucky, and life if you're not. Rushes are replaced when schedule allows, which is to say less often than your nose might request. Beneath them lurk crumbs from last week's marchpane, a lost button, a story, and nature in miniature. Rustic charm, court edition. A knock at the door. The chamber is busy already. A lady with a flagon of rose water, another with a basket of sweet bags, tiny sachets of lavender and orris root to tuck into sleeves and bodices. Dry bathing is the fashion. Actual immersion? Risky. People. Here sincerely believe hot water opens the pores and invites illness. And after a century of plague scares and moral panic about bathhouses, who's arguing? Cleansing is done with claws warmed by the fire, dipped in scented waters, briskly, rubbed across face, neck, and hands until you feel almost virtuous. Almost. Now, the face. You, like everyone anxious to please the eye of the age, aim for that pale, cloud-soft complexion poets won't shut up about. Enter Venetian cerus, a face paint whipped from white lead and vinegar, smoothed on with a neat ivory spatula. It gives that lustrous moonlit sheen under candlelight. Side effects, you ask? Let's just say, glow now, regret later. The mask cracks, the skin beneath protests, and the remedy is simply more mask. Remove it with lemon water, wine, or bread. Crumbs gently rub, think exfoliation, Tudor style. Then on goes a new veil of brightness, finished with a dusting of starch. You look divine. Your pores, however, are filing a formal complaint. Hair. If you're high in favor, it's a carefully staged spectacle. A copper gold peruke arranged high, dressed with wires, ribbons, and the occasional jewel. Wigs are not merely fashion, they're armor. After illnesses that thin hair, artifice becomes the courtly secret everyone knows and no one mentions. A paste of gum and flour sets the hairline, and the whole edifice is spritzed with orange flower water to keep spirits, and by spirits, I mean odors. Agreeable. Teeth next. A cheerful maid brings a little dish of tooth powder, crushed charcoal, powdered oyster shell, salt, and a hint of rosemary. With a rag or a boar bristle brush, you scrub. It's thorough, gritty, and heroic. Mouthwashes exist wine, infused with mint. Perhaps, but sugar has elbowed its way into aristocratic life, admired and abundant at feasts. The result is, well, sweet breath isn't quite the phrase. There are toothpicks of silver, and quills for after-banquet tiding, and clove to numb what oughtn't hurt before noon. Barber surgeons will have your molar out by candlelight if needed. But it's best not to need that as your attendants lace your stays. They dab a little civet oil, ambergris on your gloves. Scented gloves are the rage-soft leather steeped in perfumed oils for weeks until they carry their own aura. You slip them on and your hands smell like prosperity. Handy, that, where everything else smells like history. Now, a word on privies. Since you're thinking it, and I'm obligated to tell the truth, the great palaces boast close stools and genius chairs with velvet lids and a discreet pot waiting within. These are attended by people with serious titles. Groom of the stool is not a joke and serious duties. Procuring the best linen wipes, keeping everything pristine, and maintaining a privacy bubble befitting a monarch. Elsewhere in the palace, there are garderobes, stone chutes emptying into cesspits and lower down the social ladder. Chamber pots whisked away by nightmen who earn every penny and deserve medals. The Thames carries much of London's business away and returns the favor in scent. Windows open for air. Tapestries closed for show. Somewhere in between lies your respiratory tract, braver than any soldier. Breakfast is more something to steady you than a meal. A bite of manchik bread, a sip of small ale or posset, perhaps hippocras if the morning calls for courage. Water from conduits exists, brought to palaces via lead pipes and civic pride, but few trust it without boiling. Better to lean on ale, brewed clean or wine spiced for strength. Children drink it, too, though the weak sort, and no one looks twice. Hydration is an art and a negotiation. Back to odors, because they're the silent courtiers here. Miasma theory reigns, the idea that bad air causes illness. So people fight smell with smell. Juniper burned in braziers. Vinegar sponged on handkerchiefs. Nosegays held politely beneath the nose as you pass through a crowded hall. Scent isn't pastime, it's public health. Well, their version? Your clothes are layered. Fine linen chemise, stays, petticoats, gown, four-part, sleeves pinned on, a rough starts to architectural perfection with a whiff of lavender. Laundry day is a production water. Hauled, fires tended, lye stirred, knuckles reddened. With so many layers, the trick is simple. Keep the underlinen clean and let the outer silk pretend everything is perfect. It is, so long as nobody FAINTS dot in the hands. Soap is basic lye and fat, but it exists. Hands are washed often enough to please the eye and rubbed with scented waters to please the nose. Nails kept tidy, rings polished. In a world without germ theory, you still learn quickly what feels fresh and what feels unwise. You step out. The corridor breathes a tapestry of aromas. Beeswax polish, damp wool, rushes, perfume, a hint of smoke. At the far end, a servant glides by with a bucket and a look of eternal patience. The palace is alive in that way only great houses are full. Of people, movement, secrets, and careful routine. Hygiene here isn't absence of smell. It's choreography. 100 small acts, all day, every day, keeping courtly illusion afloat. Now, before you picture Her Majesty drowning in filth and folly, remember this. Elizabeth's household was an engine of tidiness by the standards of its age. Floors strewn with fragrant herbs, linen changed with devotion, scented waters in generous supply, and attendants whose entire careers revolved around keeping things sweet. The Queen was famously fastidious for her time bathing, as often as she believed prudent, preferring clean linens and surrounding herself with the best of what Tudor cleanliness could muster. It's just that clean then is not clean. Now, their enemies were miasmas, not microbes. Their armor was scent, not soap. And their triumph was the smell of roses while living in a world that constantly offered compost. So yes, by modern lights, some habits feel eyebrow-raising. But hush that modern smugness for a second. They were doing their best with what they knew, and their best involved gold-threaded towels, rosewater bowls, silver toothpicks, velvet-lidded stools, and gloves perfumed so gorgeously you could forgive nearly anything. Take one last breath, gingerly. Because if this is morning, just imagine what dinner looks like. Next time, rouge, ruffs, and a river that never minds its manners. We'll talk cosmetics that bite back, starch with a spine, and how a palace combats the season everyone dreads. Summer. You've survived the morning muster of rose water and resolve. Now comes the performance. Paint, powder, pleats, and olfactory diplomacy. This is the hour when court becomes a theater and faces become stages. The sort of stages that creak a little and occasionally flake. Let's start with the paint box. A Tudor treasure chest that could double as a chemist's cautionary tale. Your complexion must read moonlit marble, even at noon. The instrument, Venetian ceruse, a velvety white concoction born of lead and vinegar. It glides on like a compliment and ages like a bad decision. When the surface cracks because the face insists on moving, the cure is more surface. A glaze of egg white may seal the look for the day, but blink carefully unless you fancy hairline fractures at dinner. Rouge comes next, tinted with cochineal, a precious import, or alkanet root. Sometimes a whisper of vermilion. A dab at the cheeks, a soft bloom that says health, youth, and absolutely nada. I was up until 3 reading dispatches and worrying about Spain. Lips are touched with a waxy balm steeped in pigment and orange peel. Under candlelight, it's irresistible. In daylight, slightly theatrical, but this is a court, not a meadow. Brows and lashes? Keep them dignified. A slender brow is in favor, often tamed with a bit of soot and oil. For lashes, a hint of lampblack, gently applied with a pointed quill because raccoon eye isn't yet fashionable. If the hairline is less than forthcoming, wigs do the heavy lifting, powdered and perfumed, set with pins that could double as small weapons. Your scalp, meanwhile, negotiates with the pastes used to fix the hair gums, starches, and flour gallant against humidity and gravity, less gallant against comfort. Now the rough. Starch is the unsung tyrant of the age. Wheat flour beaten into. A paste tinted ever so faintly to keep linen looking bright. A touch of blue makes white whiter, like magic with a domestic accent. The linen is dipped, dried, and attacked with hot poking stick slender irons that crease each loop into fierce attention. The result is architecture for the neck, a cloud with a spine. The smell, however, is another matter. Starch carries. A warm, bready note when freshly set, and something altogether different after a day of proximity to humanity. Hence the perpetual race. Wear, wilt, wash, repeat. Skimp on any step, and your rough surrenders to limpness, which in this company is social treason. Court laundresses are heroic. Linen is scrubbed in lye, pounded, rinsed, and spread on bleaching greens to invite the sun's impartial judgment. Those delicate knife pleats, reset by hand, inch by inch, while irons hiss and the air fills with a bakery's ghost. By evening, the rough will have collected a polite anthology of the day, a dusting of powder, a kiss from the kitchen, a breath of the hall. Nothing a fresh pot of starch can't forgive tomorrow. Breath, you ask, in this world of sugar banquets and spiced wine? Managed with strategy. Tooth powders of crushed shell and salt scour with admirable zeal. Clove is the court's quiet friend, numbing an ache and freshening the conversation. After feasts, silver toothpicks appear like tiny swords to duel with syllabub. As for the royal smile, let's be tactful. Contemporary observers noted that fondness for sugar wrote its own letters over time. Remedies included washes of wine and herbs, and the firm belief that a kiss of civet on the glove could persuade noses to forgive most things. Perfume is policy, not the shower of a modern spritz, but the layering of scent like diplomatic treaties. Sweet bags tucked into the bodice, a pomander at the waist, an ambergris-scented glove softly waving away the memory of corridors. Vinegar. Of four thieves, a grandiose name for a spiced infusion, is dabbed on hankies to guard against bad air miasma, the villain of the day. If the air is the enemy, then oranges studded with clove are tiny shields, and juniper burning in a brazier is artillery. Now the season shifts. Summer approaches with all the charm of a crowded fairground. London swells, the river lowers, and the sense of industry and enthusiasm rise to the balcony like an encore. Tanners work their craft along the banks. Butchers send their leftovers to an audience of gulls. Household waste finds its way to the stream with a heuristic confidence. The palace fights back with more of what it knows. Rushes renewed more often. Herbs strewn liberally. Windows managed like chess pieces. Open for breeze, closed for odor, draped for dignity. Heat is no friend to wigs. Powder clumps, gum softens. The glorious contraption on your head develops opinions. Servants armed with combs and calm retire you to a side chamber for emergency diplomacy. A pat with starch, a whisper of orange water, a rearrangement of pins. Meanwhile, the rough, bravely soldiering, absorbs the climate like a diary. Those poking sticks return, warmed and resolute. Bathing? Carefully and on purpose. The queen is known to be fastidious by the standards of her day. Bathing when she deems. It's sensible and always with scented waters at the ready. But even so, full immersion is rare theater. More often it's linen, the miracle fabric changed frequently, drawing away what needs drawing away and making the body feel newly civilized. A fresh shift is a fresh start. Add a rub of rosemary. Water, and even July, can be charmed into behaving for an hour. Let's talk chambers and close stools during the summer siege. The groom of the stool attends with a kind of ceremonial gravity, ensuring that privacy, linen, and dignity travel together. Pots are emptied promptly by men whose work keeps the world running and the nose is hopeful. Cesspits are managed timed, covered, and cleared under moonlight, because daytime will not negotiate. In the worst heat, even the stone walls listen. Food and fragrance, briefly. Kitchens roar in summer. Spices attempt to referee. Dishes hurry the table before the air can introduce itself. Diners deploy napkins. Large, honest, useful, lemon to freshen fingers, and rosewater basins at meal's end. It's not just etiquette. It's defense. You might imagine the court forever awash with odor and peril. But here's the quiet truth. These people are professionals at managing the unmanageable. They keep beeswax on the wood, herbs on the floor, scent on the glove, and their composure firmly secured with pins. Cleanliness is a craft, not a condition. If modernity boasts soap and drains, the Tudors boast choreography and stubbornness. And what of the queen herself in the heart of this scented storm? Tirewomen vigilant, laundresses tireless, apothecaries conjuring waters with names like Hungary and Angelica, barbers perfecting the art of careful cleansing with warmed claws and gentle hands. Everything is designed to serve an image. Gloriana, untouched by weather, untroubled by time. The machinery behind that miracle hums from dawn till the last candle sighs. Of course, the cost is real skin that tolerates much, lungs that negotiate often, and teeth that make their opinions known. But the stage never shows the scaffolding. That, after all, is the essence of court. The illusion so complete, you forget there was ever a trick dot. So, your face is set, your ruff is marching in step, and your perfume stands ready like a courteous bodyguard. Open the door. Summer awaits with its fanfare. Next time, we venture into the privy world proper stools. Gong farmers, Tudor plumbing, and how a river became both a mirror and a messenger. Bring your nosegay. You'll want it. You've powdered your courage and straightened your ruff. Time to discuss the thing every court pretends not to notice, and every servant quietly manages, where it all goes. Because for all the pearls and poetry, a palace is still a small city. and small cities have needs start at the top. The queen enjoys a close stool, essentially a handsome chair with a velvet lid and a well-fitted pot hidden within. It is not a crude convenience. It's an instrument of state, attended by a gentleman with one of the most influential posts in the realm, the groom of the stool. Yes, the title raises smiles now, but in the Tudor world, it also means intimate access, trusted discretion, and enormous administrative responsibility. He oversees the privy chamber finances, the bedchamber routine, and the smooth running of personal comfort. Linen wipes, soft, bleached, and sometimes scented, warm water for washing, basins of rose or marjoram water for the hands. Everything is orchestrated with quiet ceremony so that necessity never dents majesty. The stool's pot pewter, earthenware, sometimes lined, doesn't empty itself. Enter the yeomen and grooms below stairs, the quiet heroes of hygiene. Pots are whisked away, scrubbed, and returned, their contents destined for cesspits or carted off-site, where the earth will think no more of it than it does of yesterday's. Rain. Lime is the court's friend here, scattered liberally to tame odors and encourage discretion from the nose. Step down a rank or two from the royal suite, and you'll find garderobes, stone-built privies tucked into walls, their shafts, dropping into pits or out over water. They're clever, in a medieval way, drafty enough to ventilate, lined enough to endure, and positioned so that gravity does some of the labor. At Hampton Court, there was even the great house of easement, a multi-seated wonder. Imagine a quiet choir of benches serving many at once, practical, communal, and tidied by people who deserve more thanks than history gives dot by night. The palace changes gear. Dong farmers and nightmen go to work, clearing cesspits, bailing out the day's reality, and conveying it to Laistol's midden heaps beyond the bustle or onto fields as manure with a new lease of life. It's not glamorous, but it is the unarguable foundation of comfort. The work is dangerous in its way. Pits breathe and fumes whisper, so men move carefully, by lantern, with a professional's respect for the hidden. They are well paid by the standards of labor, and they earn every coin. London itself mirrors the palace, proud and practical. Scavengers sweep the streets, rakers collect what the day leaves behind, and water bearers shoulder yokes from conduits. Where spring water runs into public cisterns by the grace of civic engineering. In private houses and great palaces alike, water is also piped, yes, piped through leads from springs and heads. It's clever, it's convenient, and it tastes, some say, faintly of its journey. Sensible households boil, brew, or flavor what they drink. Hence the ubiquity of small ale and posset, safer than raw water, kinder to the constitution, and a reliable companion at breakfast. And beyond that now, the river. The Thames is the city's silver belt and its stubborn accomplice. It brings goods, gossip, ambassadors, and the odd floating surprise you did not order. It receives outfalls from workshops and households, then carries them on with the tide like a discreet friend. Except in summer, when the water runs low, the air runs hot, and the river refuses to keep secrets. That's when every Londoner rediscovers. Nosegays, and every parish clerk pens polite notices about keeping certain matters away from certain bridges. The court, being sensitive to both health and reputation, shifts between royal houses with the season, Greenwich, Richmond, Windsor, always hunting the best air, the sweetest water, and the fewest reminders that cities are human. Etiquette does its part. Hand washing is ritualized. The ewer appears with warm water and a towel before and after dining. Guests hold their hands over a silver basin while a gentle stream sluices away the day. At meal's end, rose water or orange flower water is poured for fingers, and napkins the size of optimism mop up what feasts inevitably scatter. Gloves are perfumed not merely because it's pleasant, but because they interpose a garden between you and reality. A silk handkerchief soaked in vinegar and herbs becomes both accessory and amulet against bad airs. Paper, you wonder? Not in the modern sense. Linen rags serve soft and launderable, kept for the purpose and handled with discretion. Sponges appear on campaign and at sea. Coarser options exist lower down the ladder, but at court, the rule is simple. Cloth, water, scent, and secrecy. What's done is done. What's cleaned is forgotten. Innovation peeks in, too. Late in Elizabeth's reign, her clever godson Sir John Harrington designs a water closet, an early flushing contraption with valves and cisterns, and installs one at his house in Kelston. He writes a playful treatise about it with a title that made the court laugh and purse its lips at the same time. One was reputedly set up for the Queen's inspection at Richmond. Whether she embraced the novelty or treated it as a party piece, the point is clear. Even in a world of rushes and roughs, minds are at work on the problem of decency. Smell was not merely endured. It was managed like a border dispute. Rooms were strewn with sweet herbs, meadowsweet, lavender, rosemary, that released their oils underfoot. Braziers burned juniper, and sometimes frankincense, to sweeten the air and, by their lights, to protect the body from the invisible. Windows and curtains were choreography, open for breeze, closed for drafts, half-drawn for dignity. Tapestries drank in damp and gossip, and were aired with admirable frequency. The wardrobe of robes maintained not just splendor but freshness. Furs combed, gowns brushed, linings changed, sweet bags renewed. Does all of this mean the court smelled like a summer orchard? Not exactly. It smelled like people who worked very hard to keep it so. There's a difference, and it's the difference between theater and rehearsal. The illusion was convincing because the backstage was relentless. As for Elizabeth herself, she was famously particular. Accounts speak of regular bathing by her own measure, warm water, scented, privacy assured, and an insistence on clean linen. Her laundresses lived on the edge of heroism, their hands raw from lie and labor, their bleaching greens dotted with royal shifts like flags of truce between body and world. The Queen's chambers boasted basins of silver, towels of fine diaper, ewers engraved with Tudor roses, and attendants drilled in the art of making necessity invisible. Do modern noses recoil at the idea of cesspits and night carts? Perhaps. But remove the mains, the sewers, and the detergents we take for granted, and you'd be astonished how quickly you, too, would come to value a sprig of rosemary, a well-kept close stool, and a river tide timed like a prayer. So yes, the hygiene habits of Elizabeth's court can feel, shall we say, vigorous by our measure. Yet within their world, they were refined. 1,000 small civilities layered over the facts of life until the facts agreed to be polite. Take your nosegay, tuck it neatly in your glove. Next time, we'll visit Laundry Day itself, bucking tubs, bluing, the alchemy of starch, and why a ruff is just a well-behaved piece of linen having the day of its life. You've admired the ruff. Now meet the battalion that keeps it in line. Tubs, paddles, fires, and women with forearms like folklore. Laundry Day at Elizabeth's court isn't a gentle flutter of handkerchiefs in a summer breeze. It's industry. It's chemistry. It's war fought with lye, elbow grease, and an optimism bright as a bleaching green dot begin with the hall. Water doesn't stroll into the laundry. It's carried, bucket by bucket, from conduit or river or drawn from wells that complain in winter and sulk in summer. Fires are coaxed to a practical roar. Great cauldrons simmer. The air smells of ash, hot linen, and determination. Stage one is bucking. No, not a dance, though there's rhythm to it. Linen, always linen first. Never silk, is laid in a great bucking tub and doused with lye, a leachate brewed from wood. Ash and water, sometimes strengthened by chamber lye, the politely stored sort that launderers value for its bite. It is not glamorous, it is effective. The solution threads its way through fibers, lifts what life has left behind, and prepares cloth for honest renewal. After a good soak, the linen is beaten pounded with laundry beetles, wooden mallets, or slapped against boards. This looks like vengeance and smells like victory. Stains plead mercy, the laundress does not parley. Then to scalding, shirts and shifts meet hot water and soap. Either a plain tallow bar cooked up in the scullery, or for finer garments, precious. Castile olive oil soap, imported at no small cost and treated like treasure. Bluing follows. That ancient magic trick wherein a whisper of blue makes white appear whiter. A tiny bag filled with powdered smalt or a pinch of woad indigo swirls through rinse water, lending a faint celestial tint that cancels the yellow that daylight cruelly reveals. The effect is subtle and deeply satisfying. A good laundress knows the line between luminous and laundry day enthusiast. If your rough shows up azure, someone's hand slipped. Bleaching is next, and it's literal. Laundresses spread damp linen over bleaching greens lawns, reserved for the purpose pinning. Edges so the breeze can't freelance. Sunlight does its quiet work, drawing out the last of the shadows. The season lends a hand. In winter, you do what you can with frost and faith. In summer, the cloth brightens like a clean conscience. Between turns, a rinse in running water chases out soap and pride dot, all this for the layers nearest skin. The outer finery silks, velvets, brocades rarely see a tub. They're brushed, aired, and spot cleaned with breadcrumbs, stale beer, or spirits of wine. The trick is simple. Keep what touches you immaculate, and let the outer splendor pretend that life is tidy. If only now, starch, the rough's tyrant and savior. Wheat flour is boiled into a paste, thinned to a creamy liquor, and sensitive. You're feeling generous rose water for romance, lavender for resolve. Linen cuffs, bands, and collars take the bath, then are dried to that perfect moment of damping when they'll hold a crease like a promise. Enter the poking stick slender, heated irons, and the goffering rods around which each cartwheel and picadilly is shaped. It's sculpture, and the medium bites back. One scorch, and you start again. One droop, and your social standing slumps with it. Starchers earn their keep. Some hail from the Low Countries and bring with them an art form. Tints are a talking point faintly. Blue for brilliance. Later fashion will flirt with other shades, but here in Gloriana's day, crisp white is gospel. Starch smells faintly of bakery at first. By vespers, it collects the day's diary. Hence the cycle. Wash, starch, set, wear, sigh, repeat. Irons hiss, heavy as duty. They're heated in banks near the hearth and tested with a wetted finger and experience. Too cool, and you persuade nothing. Too hot, and you brand the truth onto. Linen. Liners' sacrificial claws sit between iron and garment to prevent shine. A clever laundress keeps several irons in rotation, swapping as one cools and another sulks. The laundry also mines perfumes. Sweet bags must be refreshed tiny. Sachets of orris, lavender, benzoin, and spices tucked into coffers and sleeves. Gloves are redressed. Soft kids steeped in perfumed oils until they sigh ambergris and orange blossom. It's both luxury and strategy. Leather tanning involves steps best not contemplated over breakfast. Scent draws a curtain over necessity. Soap making itself is a parallel craft. Rendered fat saved from kitchens married to lion steaming kettles. Stirred until it thickens, poured into molds, sliced when firm. The bars cure on shelves, the room smelling like plainness and purpose. For the privileged, wheels of olive soap sit wrapped like cheeses, to be shaved down for the queen's linens, or for a particularly treasured ruff whose edge lives dangerously, close to candle flames and gravy. Not everything thrives in water. Furs are brushed with powdered orris and fuller's earth, then aired on cold days when moths mind their manners. Tapestries are beaten in the open by men wielding rods huge as a pinion. The dust that spills from them could tell you last year's gossip in detail. After, they're spritzed with scented waters, allowed to breathe, and rehung with dissatisfaction. Of a room that has remembered itself, the rhythm of the day is relentless. Muck, beat, boil, blue, bleach, wring, dry, starch, set, press. Arms ache, hands chap and lie, winters bite. Summers flash dry and fray tempers. And yet the result is civilization in cloth. The feel of a fresh shift after a long day. The sight of a rough standing proud like a small architectural miracle. The knowledge that under all the theater, something truly clean meets the skin. Security, oddly, is part of it. Laundry is wealth on the line. Biographies hang their initials stitched into gussets. Dawns in familiar places. The queen shifts with blackwork so fine it murmurs. Theft is a known hazard. Ledgers are kept, tallies checked, parcels sealed. The wardrobe and laundry are bureaucracies with soap under their nails and impeccable penmanship. And what a disgusting. By modern standards, yes chamber lie in tubs, ash on hands, steam that smells of a day wrestled to the ground. But suspend your era for a moment. In a world without taps, powders, bright plastic bottles, and electric irons, this is excellence. It is knowledge handed from mother to daughter, from mistress to maid, calibrated by weather and fiber and the whims of nobles who fall in love with a sleeve shape that doubles laundry hours without adding a farthing to anyone's wages. Elizabeth's fastidious street drives it. She likes things fresh, orderly, and fragrant by the lights of her age. Laundresses, starchers, sewers, and keepers of the bucking tubs form an invisible guard about her person, just as vital as any pikeman at the gate. They keep the illusion luminous. If you listen as dusk falls, you'll hear the iron sigh, the last rough stacked in air like pastries, the greens empty and the kettles cooling with little clicks. Linen clean, bluied, and starched rests. For tomorrow's theater, it will meet rosewater at dawn and scandal at supper, and somehow carry off both. Take a breath. You've survived the wash house. Next time, the painted face that bites back white lead, mercury, recipes from the apothecary, and the careful art of looking celestial without inviting a headache you can't name. Bring a lemon. You'll want something to cut through it. You've survived the wash house and saluted the starch. Now step quietly into the apothecary's world, the cupboard of curiosities where beauty is bottled, beaten, distilled, and, if we're honest, occasionally bites back. This is face alchemy, Elizabethan style, recipes copied in neat italic, jars labeled with Latin confidence, and the results first mentality that would make a modern. Dermatologists clutch their pearls. Begin with the base note of the age. Pale. Not just pale luminous, porcelain, moon on water pale. The formula that rules the mirrors of Venetian cerus, a velvety white made by coaxing metal to behave like milk. Lead flakes are set above vinegar in sealed pots. Time and vapor do their mischief. The crust is scraped, washed, and ground to a buttery paste. Mixed with rose water and a little oil of almonds, it spreads like a compliment. It covers the freckles, the flush, and, for those who have known a winter illness or the pox, the memories time leaves behind. Contemporary whispers say the queen herself favored such whites after a brush with smallpox, the paint restoring the theater the world expected. Whatever the truth, the fashion is set. Faces float from roughs like bright moons. Cerus is not sentimental. It dries, it tightens, and beneath its smooth bravado, the skin may protest. The solution is to add a little more. An egg-white glare. Conceal it, whipped to a sheen, and brushed on thinly. It sets like the world's most earnest glaze. Blink gently. Smile carefully. Keep tears for after you've changed into your night shift. Color returns by design. Rouge is brewed from cochineal, those prized little crimson makers carried across oceans. Alkanet steeped in spirits, or a pinch of vermilion for the bold. Mixed with wax and a drop of oil of ben, it warms on the fingertips and blooms at them. Apples of the cheeks, as if you just walked briskly across an orchard. Lips take a similar balm beeswax. Pigment, a breath of orange peel. Under candlelight, its charm in miniature. In daylight, bravura. Blemishes meet a cabinet of lotions with names that promise the world. Sublimate waters, apothecaries. Clever distillations are dabbed with a feather on spots and shadows. Lemon juice and vinegar of roses are praised for clarifying the complexion. Honey masks calm and flatter. An ointment called pomatum, a soft blend of suet and wax kissed with rose, keeps winter from writing on your face. Need to tighten for a long day? Alum water obliges, brisk and bracing as a sermon. Brows and lashes are kept neat with a touch. Of lampblack and oil, just enough to define without announcing themselves from the other end of the great hall. A high forehead, long prized, is achieved not by plucking here court wigs do the heavy lifting, but a hairline smoothed with a paste of starch so the peruke sits as if it grew there. When the weather sulks, a veil of hair powder steadies flyaway intentions and gives the whole arrangement a civilized sweetness, especially when scented with ours. Now, the removal. No modern cleanser waits by the basin. You must undo your theater. By hand. Bread, yes. Bread comes to your rescue. Stale crumbs rolled soft will lift powder gently from the skin. A cloth warmed, dampened with wine or rosewater follows, coaxing the rest away without bruising your temper. Some add a drop of sweet almond oil to the mix, massaging until the day lets go. Lemon water brightens. A final rinse with plain. Warm water soothes. If you are particularly cautious, you sleep with a thin smear of pomatum to keep the skin supple against winter rooms that heat at the hearth and freeze 5 paces away. The scent wardrobe helps more than pride. Hungary water, rosemary, and citrus distilled in spirits makes a refreshing spritz for linen and a brisk wipe for temples on a heavy afternoon. Angel water, queenly in name and optimism, blends herbs and blossoms in aqua vita until the bottle seems to carry a garden inside. A few drops on the pulse, a whisper through the hair, and you have drawn a line between yourself and the corridor, which is all anyone wants some days. Teeth deserve a quiet word in a chapter of faces. Tooth powders are earnest mixtures, powdered. Oyster shell and salt for scouring. Crushed charcoal and rosemary for a deeper clean. A rinse of wine with mint leaves is applauded, and a clove tucked in the cheek performs miracles for morale when a molar mutters. After sweetmeats, fashionable sculptures of sugar that make poets. Silly silver toothpicks glint along the high table like tiny lances. If a tooth finally insists on leaving, a barber surgeon will oblige with brisk skill and a steady hand. Until then, perfume the glove and smile from a gracious distance. Every recipe has a provenance. Gentlewomen keep receipt books, neat volumes of to make a white for the face, to sweeten gloves, to water for the heat, copied from cousins, swapped at visits, sharpened by experience. Apothecaries, meanwhile, balance trade. And prudence. Their shelves hold alabaster pots of cerus and tiny cones of alkanet, drawers labeled for orris and benzoin. Glass cucurbits catching sunlight as something aromatic decides whether to be a miracle. You pay for their knowledge as much as their wares, and for the discretion that keeps your favorite formula from becoming the toast of next month's MASQUE. There are cautions murmured. Buy the practical. Too much white dries and tires the skin. Strong waters require a steady, sparing hand. Even the friendliest astringent should be followed by comfort. But this is a court that lives by appearances, and appearances ask a price. The trick learned by the clever is rotation. A light day after a heavy one. An honest face on hunting mornings. A Sabbath for the skin behind. Your chamber door with only rose ointment and a good book for company. Gloves are the quiet accomplices of this tale. Perfume kit, soaked for weeks in a marriage of ambergris, musk, civet, citrus, and herbs, then dried and buffed until they sigh when you flex your fingers. Slip them on, and the world becomes bearable. Slip them off, and your hands carry a polite echo of prosperity. When everything else is a negotiation between scent and sense, a beautiful glove is diplomacy at your fingertips. And yes, there is humor in the enterprise. Rain and rough dispute. Rouge meets rough and loses. A wig pin decides it wishes to be a brooch. Tire women learn to move like surgeons and poets at once, calm hands, kind words, and a talent for resurrecting a face between the first bell and the second. Apothecaries learn to label everything twice and to keep Lennon always within reach. If you're tempted to raise an eyebrow at the disgusting end of things, metals and creams, crumbs as cleansers, remember two truths. First, the results under candlelight are astonishing. Portrait painters did not invent their subjects out of thin air. They simply amplified a real stagecraft. Second, lacking taps and tinctures with scientific footnotes, these people built a system that, within its world, worked. It was iterative, observant, and, in its way, tender. They noticed what comforted skin after winter. They knew which waters steadied a flush before an audience. They understood that beauty needs caretaking as much as bravado does, so you wash away. Today, ease off the rough like a halo and settle your hair for sleep. A dab of lavender on the pillow. A page or two by rushlight. Outside, the corridor softens. Somewhere, an iron cools with a polite tick. Your face freed of its fear remembers. It is human. Tomorrow the alchemy begins again. Paints and powders, scents and starch, and you, bravely in between, making it all look effortless. Next time, hands, feet, and everything the portraits politely ignore: nail care, scented shoes, foot baths that save summers, and the quiet heroism of the groom of the wardrobe's toolkit. Bring a sprig of rosemary. Your toes will thank you. Hands first, because portraits lie only kindly. In oil and gilt, fingers look like elegant punctuation marks to a life well composed. In reality, court hands work. They write, seal, sign, lift, lace, bless, beckon, and constantly negotiate with ink, wax, and weather. Cleanliness is a performance here too, and the props are handsome dot at the chamber door. The ewer appears with warm water in a silver ewer and a deep basin chased with roses. You hold your hands over the dish. A gentle stream sluices away the morning's ink and starch sweat. Soap, flame, lye, and tallow for the practical. Castile for the privileged makes a restrained appearance. Then rose water or rosemary water for the finish. A linen towel of fine diaper for the flourish. And a soft balm, pomatum with a sigh of almond oil, rubbed into palms to keep winter from writing cracks where rings would rather sit. Nails are trimmed with tiny knives and shears. Edges are tidied with files of bone or fine metal. Those neat little grooming sets you see in cabinets, they're not toys. You'll find a nail knife, a tiny ear scoop, yes, a toothpick, and a bodkin tucked together like a traveling sermon. On tidiness, the trick is discretion. No open surgery on hangnails at table. No filing within earshot of a statesman. Tend to the lot in your closet. Then emerge looking as if the world never required maintenance. Rings are glorious and treacherous. Jewels catch candlelight and also whatever the day is shedding. The wardrobe keeps whiting, powdered chalk, and spirits of wine for a gentle polish. Jewelers bring harsher magics when pearls sulk and gold forgets to shine. Periodically, bands are slipped off and soaked in spiced vinegar. Cloths blacken. dignity returns. It is astonishing what hides behind a sapphire. Gloves are the hand's armor and their scent cloud. Kid leather, painstakingly tanned, is then steeped in perfumes ambergris. Musk, civet, orange flower, bergamot, lavender, until the very seams remember the recipe. They're soft as rumors and twice as persuasive. Slide them on, and you smell like resolve. Slide them off, and your skin wears a polite echo. When gloves need refreshing, they are redressed, lightly warmed, fed with a thimble of oil, dusted. With Oris, they last, and they lie beautifully about the day's work done our feet, the unsung martyrs of magnificence. Shoes are elegant, yes square-toed, latchet-fastened, with slash tops and silk ribbon bravado, but they also meet the world, where it lives, on stone, board, and the odd questionable paving. To save leather and temper, you strap on Patton's wooden or metal overshoes that lift you a sensible inch or two above damp courtyards and summer streets. They click. They announce. They keep silk stockings from learning lessons they cannot. UNLEARN. Stockings, or hose, themselves are a story. Fine worsted in winter, silk in seasons that allow you to boast without frostbite. They're gartered neatly and laundered often, because feet will be feet. Sweat is managed with powders Oris, starch, a whisper of alum to keep the peace, and by rotation. Yesterday's hose rest on a line, breathing rosemary while today's take the field. The wardrobe keeps cedar chests in sweet bags for storage. Moths dislike cedar and conversation equally. Footbaths are honest miracles. A small tub, warm water, handfuls of bay, sage, and rosemary, a nip of vinegar, and a spoon of alum if summer has opinions. You soak sigh and feel civilization return up the shins. A servant arrives with a towel warmed at the fire and a dab. Of balm for heels that have been negotiating with Pattons and Parquet since breakfast. Pumice stones, light as gossip, rough as memory. Smooth calluses quietly, no drama. No heroics. Just a gentle insistence that tomorrow's shoes will sit better. Corns and stubborn. Calluses are barber surgeon's territory trimmed with care, not courage. A little salve of turpentine and wax may be applied after to persuade skin to behave. If a nail misgrows and makes its displeasure known, the watchword is soak and coax, not rush and repent. The goal is a foot that serves without complaining to the entire privy chamber. Shoes themselves need more than admiration. The wardrobe keeps wooden lasts to help them hold their shape. Leather is fed with neat's foot oil or a scented dressing. Linings are dusted with fine powders. Latchets are rethreaded with ribbons that haven't met puddles. On wet days, saws are washed, scraped, and allowed to dry sensibly away from roaring fires so they don't curl like bad temper. A good pair of shoes is an investment and a companion. It should not be roasted after a single unfortunate outing. And yes, odor. The court is frank about it without being vulgar. Feet are feet, rooms are prepared. Brushes are renewed, herbs are strewn. A brazier with juniper might breathe quietly. In a corner, and a sweet bag tucked into a shoe when it rests will persuade tomorrow that nothing happened today. Alum, again, is a friend, dusted into hose. It makes peace with over-enthusiastic pores. The groom of the wardrobe and his diligent yeoman are the unseen generals of this quiet campaign. Their stores are wondrous, bolts of lawn and Holland 4, fresh shifts and cuffs, baskets of pins, expensive enough to count, hence pin money, reels of laces, boxes of sweet bags, chests of cedar, jars of fuller's earth, cakes of starch, coils of whalebone, cushions prickled with 100 pins like tame hedgehogs, poking sticks and goffering rods wrapped in cloth, brushes for fur, beaters for tapestry, packets of orris and lavender, and ledgers, oh, the ledgers where everything is numbered, initialed, and sworn to. Lose a glove at court, and 3 men will know where it last sat and what it smelt of. Their toolkit runs from delicate to stubborn. Needle and silk for an emergency hem. Bodkin to coax a ribbon through a labyrinth. Beeswax to tame thread. A little. Bottle of spirits to lift grease from satin. Fuller's earth to draw oil from velvet. Breadcrumbs to lift dust from brocade. A bluing bag for a cuff that forgot what white means. A taper and care to sear a frayed edge discreetly. And always, somewhere, a lemon because there are stains that respect nothing else. The same minds who keep you rough marching, keep your person civilized from fingertips to toes. They'll line your glove in winter with fine fur and then brush. That fur with Oris, so it behaves. They'll add a ribbon loop inside your shoe so a page can kneel and remove it without an undignified tug of war. They'll stitch a tiny sachet into the hem of a gown where your pulse lives, so that as you move, a ghost of rosemary walks with you. If cleanliness is a craft here, comfort is its conspirator. And what of disgusting? By modern lights. Yes, shoes that have known 3 summers. Patterns that click through courtyards you'd rather not describe. Foot baths that are more logistics than luxury. Ear scoops in little gold cases. Powders where today we'd expect deodorants. Yet consider the ingenuity. Without taps, tile bathrooms, or rubber saws, they built a system of mitigation, rotation, ventilation, perfume, powders, and respect for the materials that face the world on their behalf. Hands washed before and after meals. Fingers rinsed. In scented water at table's end. A lemon to cut the memory of a dish. Napkins large and earnest. Feet cosseted at night so that in daylight they can do their duty in silk without staging a rebellion. The wardrobe's war is never won, but it wins every day. Slip your feet back into civility. Flex your scented gloves. Your hands could face a privy council or a lute. Your feet could manage Windsor's long galleries without protest. You are, for the moment, entirely presentable, which is the highest compliment this age pays. Next time, the banquet's mirror sugar, spice, and the morning after. We'll talk dining rituals, breath in a world of Hippocras and marchpane, toothpicks like tiny lances, and why a nosegay at table is as much practicality as poetry. Bring a sprig of mint. Your future self will applaud. Take that sprig of mint you wisely brought. You're about to need it. We're going to supper, where splendor dazzles, flavors parade, and hygiene plays chaperone behind the arras. First, the theater. The great hall swells with light. Livery. Cupboards gleam with plate. The salt cellar massive symbolic anchors the high table. Seating radiates from it like a solar system. Closest to the salt is the sun. Beyond it, the provinces. Before anyone touches a trencher, etiquette scrubs the air. The ewer advances with a silver ewer and a basin. Hands are held out. Warm water flows. Towels of fine diaper catch the day. This preprandial wash is not affectation. It is policy. You are going to eat with your hands politely, with 3 fingers, from shared dishes. Clean starts matter. Trenchers tell a tale. At court, the age of edible bread trenchers is fading. Wooden trenchers, pewter plates, and fine earthenware are increasingly the norm. That said, bread still appears in thick slabs to soak up gravies and keep the table honest. At lesser boards, a trencher may be used through several courses and then repurposed sent to servants or the almoner to feed the poor. Economy wears a kind face when it can. The first dishes arrive in procession, roasts and pies, pottages and fish on fast days. Spices stride about like ambassadors. Cinnamon, ginger, cloves, mace deer, distant and adored. Despite the old jest that spices hide mistakes, court kitchens are not in the habit of serving regrets. Meat is slaughtered fresh or properly salted, smoked or pickled. Fish comes in brisk from Thames, sea, or pond. Larders are cool, walls thick, windows small, and the turnspit is a creature of habit. Still, the past is not pasteurized. Prudence looks like long boiling, vinegar and sauces, and a high regard for the season. The pantry guards the bread and plate. The buttery guards drink. The cellar and Uri manage wine and washing. The scullery wages its separate war with hot water, ash, and sand. Pewter is scoured to a reasonable shine. Silver to a blinding one. Wooden boards scrub it until fibers squeak. No detergents with friendly daisies on the label, just lye, heat, and friction. Knives are wiped, not sterilized. Cutting boards know both meat and herbs, but cooks know order. You don't carve venison, then mince mint, then daintily protest food's strange behavior. If a kitchen porter forgets himself, the master cook remembers for him. Poison, the anxiety that haunts every glittering cup, is addressed by procedure. The cupbearer assays wine before it reaches the hand that rules. Food tasters do the brave, quiet work of taking the first bite. It is a ritual of loyalty and, frankly, of calm. If anyone at high table is going to swoon, let it be for a madrigal, not mischief. Now, sugar. Ah, yes, sweet, new and fashionable. Loaves of sugar sit like alabaster in the spicery, shaved with stealthy blades and melted into marvels. Marchpane, almond paste and sugar becomes bricks and roses. Comfort's little seeds and spices jacketed in layer upon layer of sugar click merrily in silver dishes. Subtleties rise at banquets. Sugar castles, beasts, mottos, messages you can nibble. It is architectural joy and dental diplomacy. Elizabeth herself is said to be fond of sugary wonders. Late in her reign, observers note that her teeth have darkened. Fashion, being loyal to power, obligingly finds the look admirable. If the queen smiles in ebony, who would dare insist upon ivory? Breath management is its own small art. Between removes, one nibbles comfits of anise or fennel sweet little mouth fresheners. Cloves tucked in the cheek are both numbing and aromatic. After the final course of meats and pies, the void arrives. Hippocras, spiced wine, wafers, candied peels desserts designed to close the stomach and open conversation. Finger bowls make their elegant entrance rosewater, perhaps with a floating marigold petal. You dip, dab, and restore. Napkins serve honestly. They are large, folded, and forgiving. Hands are wiped discreetly and often, especially when capons misunderstand the geometry of sauce. Do people share cups? Sometimes, yes, but not at the very top, where ceremony owns the goblet, and the cupbearer's lips stand between sovereign and sip. Lower down, the communal cup is a fact. Politeness manages the angle. Sleeves manage the spill. Mint manages the morning after. The kitchens, those roaring engines of appetite, are a study in organized courage. Spits turn, sometimes by boys called turnspits, sometimes by dog-powered wheels in households less sentimental than modern tastes prefer. Kettles steam. Cats. Patrol with a clear job description. Terriers take minutes on the subject of rats. Herbs hang like bunting. The bay to discourage flies. Rosemary to persuade air to mind its manners. On a fast day, the fish pond pays its rent in pike and carp. Salted fish is soaked, revived, and cooked with enough honesty to taste like itself again. When oysters come, they come lively, and not a day too soon. Leftovers are not a scandal. They are a system. The almoner manages distribution to the poor. Householders dine from what high tables spare. Bones become broth. Pies are repeat performers. Waste is a sin twice over moral and practical. Food travels down the social ladder like a well-bred rumor. And yet, despite all the care, the morning after taps politely. Garlic confides its presence. Fish days tell their own tale. Wine has left a horoscope on more than one tongue. Remedies abound. Rinse with wine and mint, chew fennel. Nibble quince paste, quinine, to settle matters. Sip a little distilled water of cinnamon to persuade digestion to agree. Apothecaries sell electuaries honeyed pastes of herbs that promise virtue in a spoon. A brisk walk in the privy garden helps more than fashion admits. Teeth, dear teeth. Toothsticks of silver and quill keep up with banquets as best they can. Tooth powder's oyster shell, salt, charcoal scour with enthusiasm. A rosemary sprig, chewed thoughtfully, offers a polite camphor. Barber surgeons handle the difficult cases with admirable sang-froid. Meanwhile, the glove perfumed and politic remains the social shield. Offer a scented hand, speak at a considerate distance, and let your reputation smell like bergamot. Napery circles back to our friends in the laundry. After a feast, tablecloths are a battlefield. Wine stars, gravy constellations, the odd scorch where a careless taper corded linen too closely. They are whisked to the bucking tub, doused with lye blue to brightness and set in the sun until they look like daylight again. Napkins, too, go through the dance. Their hems bear tiny initials, so they return to the correct cupboard. Linen is memory made useful. One myth to sweep gently aside, that everything arrived at table dangerously high. In grand houses, cooks and stewards knew their business. Meat was hung, yes, for tenderness and flavor, but not until it argued with the room. Sauces were vigorous because palates enjoyed them and purses allowed them. If something ever slipped, vinegar and spice were not a shroud. They were an apology. The court was too closely watched to risk being a comedy. Did germs sit invisibly among the pewter and pies? Of course. No one knew their names. But ritual did some good by accident. Hand washing before and after. Boiling, roasting, pickling. Wine and ale instead of raw water. The segregation of tasks across pantry, buttery, kitchen, and scullery. The habit of changing table linen with zeal. Etiquette was, in part, hygiene with manners. Bow to that sprig of mint at last. After the void, as musicians begin a galliard and conversation rises like a second pudding, you lift it to your lips. Chew, breathe, survive. A clove joins it. An anise comfort, too. Your neighbor thanks you by not stepping back. When the candles gutter and the hall exhales, the scullery takes over. Dishes clatter, sand scours, asher braids, hot water argues. Towel steam. By midnight, order peers through the door. By dawn, the table could deny everything it saw. Was it disgusting? By our lights, certain details raise brows. Shared dishes, vigorous sauces, wooden trenchers that knew yesterday, cups that didn't meet a modern sterilizer. But step into their shoes, clean, we've insured, and you'll find a culture that worked very hard to be decent in a world that offered no plumbing and many temptations. They rinsed, they scalded, they perfumed, they washed hands as if prayers counted, and they invented the void to send everyone away smelling like civility. Pocket the mint stem. You've earned it. Next time, behind the kitchen door ladders. Ice houses, when you can get them. Pickles, smoke, vermin patrols. And the quiet choreography that kept a queen's table safe through summer and siege. Bring a clove. The cats already have. Slip past the screens into the heat. Here, in the royal kitchens, splendor is assembled from fire, patience, and a great deal of practical courage. If the Great Hall is theater, this is backstage less silk, more steam. Fewer lutes, more ladles. Hygiene here is not lace. It's labor. And while some details may wrinkle a modern brow, remember, this is where a queen's life is kept safe with salt, smoke, vinegar, and vigilance. Start with the geography. A great house is never one kitchen, but a small town of them. The boiling, house groans with cauldrons. The pastry house has its own climate. Cool hands, cooler benches, an army of pies standing ready like edible fortresses. The spicery is a treasure chest with rules. The pantry, bread and plate, is calm and tidy. The buttery mines ale and wine. The scullery is a storm of hot water, ash, and sand. Each space is a gatekeeper, an order crucial to cleanliness lives in their separations. Larders are the cool heart. A dry larder shelters flour, spices, sugar loaves cloaked in paper like saints, and cured goods that will tolerate a polite wait. Hooks carry strings of sausages and hams that have met salt and smoke and now sleep in confidence. The wet larder presides over fish and fresh meat laid on slate, hung in drafts, sprinkled with caution. Canvas screens and netting tell flies that their opinions are not sought. Herbs hang nearby not just for flavor, but as gentle discouragement. Bay and rosemary are the larder's polite bouncers. Preservation here is science with an apron. Salt is sovereign dry rubs for hams, brines for beef. Vinegar and its cousin verjuice, the sharp juice of unripe grapes or crab apples, keeps vegetables honest in pickling jars. Smokehouses perfume the air with ochre beech. Fish and bacon learn patience on hooks, while resinous curls write poetry from the rafters. Sugaring is the luxurious route. Fruits transformed into marmalades and pastes that keep their nerve for months. Honey is the oldest ally, sealing fruits from the air in a golden armistice. Nothing is kept by hope. Everything is kept by method. Winter assists when it feels benevolent. Cellars are cold, stones hold their breath, and meat can be persuaded to wait. Summer is a siege. Ice houses in our modern sense are a rarity in this Tudor world, though a few grand estates know how to hoard winter snow packed in pits, thatched. Over, prayed over. Mostly, kitchens work with shade, airflow, quick decisions, and a calendar's wisdom. Fish travels at dawn. Poultry is plucked promptly. Boiling and roasting become forms of safety as well as supper. You time the river. You time the table. You don't argue with July. Water is muscle and hazard both. Conduits bring sweet water from springs to cisterns. Water bearers shoulder yokes to keep the great kettles honest. You boil for broth, brew for ale, steep for safe drinks with a civilized reputation. Lead pipes make a modern reader purse the mouth, but the Tudor solution is simple. Cook it, brew it, spice it, make it move. Stagnant water is nobody's friend. Running, boiling, and brewing are valued verbs here. Clean down. The unseen miracle is relentless. Pewter is scoured with ash and sand until it gleams. Wooden trenchers are scrubbed and dried with the grain so they don't sulk and split. Iron pots are fed a little fat so they don't rust into grievance. Spits are scrubbed while still warm. Racks are scraped. Grates are riddled and relit. Floors, flagstone, and stubborn are swept, then mopped with hot water and a splash of vinegar that sends yesterday's fish to its better self. Towels and aprons pile into the scullery's orbit. Lye, heat, bluing, bleaching greens. The same. Laundry war you met before, waged here daily. Vermin patrol is practical, not dramatic. Cats have posts unofficial, but universally respected. Small terriers earn their dinners with zeal and tail. Traps are set sensibly. Grain bins sit unraised. Legs with little copper skirts that declare mice unwelcome. Doors meet thresholds. Brooms remember corners. Cleanliness here is preventative as much as reactive. Store high, seal tight, sweep often, scald what argues, air what you can, and burn juniper if morale needs a hand. Staff are part of the hygiene plan. Cooks wear caps and coifs to keep hair. An interior matter. Aprons take the frontline spatters. Hands are washed in warm water between tasks. No modern taps, but buckets, bowls, and routine. Knives are wiped and passed from meat to herbs with order in between. The clerk of the kitchen and sergeant of the scullery are not mere titles. they're systems who walk. If the roasting range is a thunderstorm, these officers are the barometers, forever pointing at a list. Poison worries. Old, constant, managed. By protocol, spices and rare goods are locked. The spicery is a bank with mortar and mace. Dishes for high table are tasted at the dresser. The cupbearer assays the wine, and covers keep fruit unmolested between pantry and plate. Cupboards close with keys that answer to names. Threats are met with routine and eyebrows. Strong smells are addressed with their own quiet repertoire. Bay leaves smolder. Rosemary steams. Vinegar is a pan's afterthought and a room's refresher. Orange peels dry by the hearth for kindling and kindness. Kitchens that smell of citrus feel clever. Windows are chosen friends. Drafts are curated, not chanced. Tapestries do not live here. Smoke stains wood, not silk. If a room can be both roaring and tidy, this is it. The pastry folk deserve their own curtsy. They think like engineers. Hot, juicy things live inside architecture. A well-made pie isn't just supper. It's a storage system. Layers of paste, a good seal with an egg wash and intent. A vent carefully cut, and the contents live a little longer with grace. Game pies travel, fish pies keep their nerve, and the crust, sometimes eaten. Sometimes a noble shell is the edible version of do not touch until called for. Offal, handled kindly, is not an insult. It's a delicacy. Livers and hearts. Arrive at table when the animal is truly fresh, or they are cooked through and honored. Nothing lingers ready to preach. Everything that insists on speed is given it. The smell of a well-managed kitchen is not abandoned. Its ambition meat on the turn never meets a Tudor queen. And yes, the disgusting motifs that feed legends. Smoke-blackened beams, drippings saved in pots, bones simmered until the story leaves them. But step closer. Dripping jars are labeled and useful. Roast potatoes would like a word. Bones give broth that feeds the infirm and flatters the thrifty. Soot is the cost of warmth, managed by boys with scrapers and men who mind chimneys like preventers of misfortune. A greasy trestle is a failure. A gleaming one is normal. Standards are high because lives and reputations are higher. The night shift, unsung, is pure hygiene. When the last trencher's gone and the minstrels have traded lutes for yawns, the scullery breathes fire. Water lifts fat, ash abrades. Hands go red and never complain out loud. Racks dry by the embers. Wooden spoons line up like honest soldiers. Knives are oiled, stacked, and stand down. By dawn, you could swear no one ever cooked here. Then breakfast. Whispers, and the miracle restarts. Does this world miss modern disinfectants and sealed fridges? Absolutely. Does it surrender to chaos? Absolutely not. It creates a choreography of cleanliness, separation of tasks, relentless scalding, air, and light, salt and acid, smoke and sugar. Cats with purpose, ledgers with meaning. It's not sterile, it's sensible. And in an age that reads illness on the wind rather than under the lens, sensible is survival. Step back through the screens. The heat softens, the hall cools, and your nosegay remembers to be helpful. The next course you meet out there has already been argued into safety back here. Every dish is a handshake between appetite and prudence. Next time, beds. Bites and bedtime mattresses stuffed with stories. Flea combs, bed warming pans, nighttime privy etiquette, and the cleanest way to survive a Tudor night without. Surrendering your ankles to history. Bring lavender. The pillows like it. Draw the bed curtains and let the world shrink to 4 posts, a feather bed, and a prayer that nothing with more than 2 legs has booked the same accommodation. Night at Elizabeth's court is less about slumber and more about strategy. Warmth. Without smoke, softness without stowaways, and privacy without inviting the draft that fancies your toes, not first. The bed itself. a masterpiece of carpentry and ceremony. Tall posts, a carved tester, hangings of velvet or damask lined with camlet or serge, and a canopy that turns a mattress into a room within a room. Beneath, a network of webbing or ropes supports the mattress, hence the old wish to sleep. Tight, as in well tightened. On that rests a feather bed, luxurious and determined to migrate if not beaten and turned. Some houses still keep a layer of flock or straw beneath, more for spring than status. In royal rooms, everything is the better sort down-filled, well-cased, and minded by people who know their business. The ritual begins before you even think of yawning. Valets and chambers turn the bed. They strip yesterday's linen, shake the mattress, brush the tick, and beat the bolster as if it owed them rent. The sheets, fine holland or lawn, are aired before the fire and made up fresh, corners squared like good intentions. Pillows are plumped, then kissed with a dab of lavender water. Bed curtains are drawn back and tied so the whole contrivance can breathe before you climb in and pretend this was effortless. Warmth, that familiar Tudor duel. A warming pan brass, shallow, lidded appears with coals glowing within. A careful hand slides it between the sheets, quick passes only, because linen has opinions about open embers. Some prefer a hot brick wrapped in flannel. Safer, steady, and astonishingly comforting on a January night. Bed socks exist, whether you admit to them or not. A nightcap tames hair and keeps a head warm when the rest of the chamber offers less enthusiasm. Now, the quiet subject with the loud reputation. Bites. Courts share space with creatures that do not curtsy, fleas in particular, and in less well-kept rooms, bed bugs with ambitions. The counter-campaign is practical and perfumed. Mattresses are regularly beaten. Bed hangings are taken down, brushed, and aired on cold, bright days when tiny trespassers are least energetic. Rushes on the floor are renewed more often than polite. Conversation mentions and herbs wormwood, southernwood, lavender are tucked in seams, scattered beneath mattresses, and sewn into sweet bags that dangle from bedposts. Their oils do not guarantee universal harmony, but they help. Flea combs exist fine-toothed, patient, and make their appearance for hair, and for the faithful spaniels who know all the gossip and all the rugs. Linen again, the hero is changed, frequently drawing away a day's reality and thwarting what might otherwise settle in. At the very top of the pyramid, where Elizabeth sleeps, this routine is zeal. The Queen's bed is an institution, turned, inspected, perfumed, and guarded as if it could sign documents. Air is a paradox. Bed curtains keep warmth, dampen noise, and offer privacy, but they also invite staleness if you're overzealous. The trick is a hand's breadth left ajar, a window cracked just enough when weather allows, and a brazier far enough away to warm the room without reminding the bed what soot tastes like. Tapers are snuffed with care. Rushlights, those slender, thrifty strips of rush dipped in tallow burn, small and steady in a corner if needed, watched by a servant who thinks about fire more than romance. Nighttime. Necessities are inevitable and handled with decorum. A close stool or a chamber pot stands discreetly behind a screen. Linen wipes are folded within a box. A lidded water ewer stands by. A small sponge may appear for the fastidious. Everything is attended to by morning so that nothing lingers to give the laundress unrepeatable opinions. Nightmen and grooms perform their dawn rounds, and the chamber returns to innocence before breakfast as thoughts. What do you wear to bed? A clean shift, the closer to the skin, the more often it meets the tub. Gentlefolk may add a loose nightgown for warmth, a cap for prudence, and a ribbon sachet of herbs at the throat for company. Rings are removed, lest they declare their corners at 2 a.m. Necklaces unfastened, and, if you're modern enough to think of teeth at bedtime, a brisk rub with a tooth rag and minty wine sees you out of the day. Itching, the little misery that writes big. The apothecary's chest offers salves of sweet oil and a whisper of camphor, or a vinegar rinse with rosemary if something has made enthusiastic introductions. Alum water, dabbed lightly, steady skin that thinks it's a harp. For the odd, stubborn visitor, there are stronger waters known to those who mind the queen's chambers, used sparingly, aired thoroughly, and followed by clean linen, as if to draw a line under the matter. Sound punctuates the Tudor night in ways that would surprise a city flat. Watchmen call the hour beyond palace walls. Past 12, and a fair night. Their lanterns bobbing, like small moons. Within, there is the soft diplomacy of servants moving at their quiet work, the last kettle sighing in the ewer room, and from somewhere beyond the screens, a harmless mouse deciding that tapestries are geography. Curtains mute all but the important things. A knock from the privy chamber, a murmur from a sick room, where the bells that insist time is still sovereign. Pests beyond the personal moths, for instance, are fought with cedar chests, peppered papers, and the periodic airing of garments on frosty mornings that no winged thing appreciates. Furs are brushed with orris and fuller's earth, then allowed to rest where a draft disagrees with moths, but not with velvet. The wardrobe's ledgers record each outing like a ship's log. If a sleeve shows a nibble, 3 people know why, and 2 have a remedy. Cleanliness at night is quieter than daytime's bustle, but no less deliberate. Slippers by the bed prevent discovering the secrets the rushes want to share. A small bowl with vinegar water sits ready for a swift hand bath. After any nocturnal errand, a nosegay rests by the pillow, not only perfume, but something pleasant to focus on if a draft disagrees or a thought refuses to behave. The room is staged to feel safe, because safety invites sleep. Now, the question you're edging towards. Is it disgusting? Measured by an electric gauge, parts of it prick the sensibility warming pans with coals, creatures with their own agendas, night pots, rushlights that smell faintly of tallow. Measured within its world, it's conscientious. Beds turned with zeal, linen changed often. Herbs work like allies, fires watched, lights managed, servants drilled. Pests denied citizenship through routine and cold air. The court understands that rest is political. A tired council makes poor decisions. A queen who slept in peace is a queen who reads in the morning without scowling. Elizabeth's fastidiousness sets the tone. She likes clean shifts, freshened pillows, and order. She notices. Chamberers notice that she notices, and thus a dozen hands make sure the bed is a sanctuary, even if the world is not. When she journeys, her bed goes with her, a portable heaven, its hangings packed in trunks, its familiar scents traveling like a household deity. The post may change. The pillow never does that, so the candles are pinched. The last, good night, is a whisper, and the curtains breathe. Outside the velvet, the palace ticks like a polite clock. Sentries change. Embers mutter, the river turns. The stars attend their engagements. Inside, you curl in linen that smells of soap and sunshine, and you hope the herbs keep their promises. Morning will bring rose water and rumors. For now, let the warming brick do its good work and the lavender tell a gentle lie, that the world beyond the bed is as civilized as the world within it. Next time, hair, wigs, and the politics of the scalp-knit combs, pomades, perukes dressed. Like architecture and the discreet choreography that keeps a crown from quarreling with its cushion. Bring a fine-toothed comb. The pot of orange flower water is already waiting. Step into the tiring room, a small kingdom of combs. The air smells of orris and warm iron. A brazier purrs. Pincers heat like coiled intentions. This is where hair becomes policy. Elizabeth's court wears its meanings on its head. Youth signaled. With brightness, rank with height, control with smoothness. The result looks effortless. It never is begin with the fashion. Bright, burnished, and a little unreal. The Holy Grail is a golden red that sings under candlelight. A high, clear forehead is still admired, once achieved by plucking, now more. Often by art. A neat coif, a smooth hairline, the suggestion that your skull is aristocratic by design. Women's hair frames the face in frizzed puffs at the temples, then resolves into orderly waves and coils pinned above the nape. Pearls and ribbons nest like well-behaved birds. Men play at geometry-peaked fringes early in the reign. Then the long, languid lock, then a beard that could write a sonnet in its own hand. Washing is not daily theater. Water is cold, drafts unkind, drying slow. Scalps are treated more like velvet than like flagstone. When hair is washed, it's a considered day. A lather with a mild lye soap or a rosemary infusion, followed by a vinegar or verjuice rinse that leaves things glossy and biddable. Then a long brush before the fire, or bristles coaxing oils from scalp to ends until shine looks like virtue. In between, maintenance is the rule. Powder for freshness, orris root with a sigh of starch. Pomatum for obedience, suet or lard worked. With almond oil and perfume. And the brush as catechism 100 strokes is not a silly number. It's a schedule. Dyes and brighteners exist at the bold end of the shelf. Saffron and henna-adjacent plant dyes coax a copper tone. Sun bleaching with an alkaline rinse asks a price in dryness. Waters, promising aurora on the head, may include metals your hair won't thank you for. The prudent add oil, the vain add bravery, and the queen who sets fashion with a glance simply wears a different wig tomorrow. Yes, wigs. Not the mountainous perukes of a later century, but clever constructions all the same. Human hair, sometimes hoarse for stiffness, knotted to a fine net, arranged in curls, puffs, and ordered rings. Elizabeth's coffers hold a small army of them, flame-tinted, obedient, fragrant. They're dressed on padded heads, combed with a light hand, and fixed with pomatum so the curl reads as decision. When a crown or heavy jewel must sit without argument, the solution is engineering. An arming cap, a discreet wire frame, tapes and hidden loops, and a hedge of pins blackened steel so they vanish against silk. The trick is to spread the weight so the wearer can think about politics, not pain. Storage is a hygiene lesson disguised as luxury. Wig boxes lined with paper and herbs. Stands that let curls breathe. Orris and lavender powders to keep moths and mischief away. Regular airing on bright, dry mornings. If something small with legs develops ambitions, the remedy is resolute. Out comes the knit comb, the smoke of a few rosemary sprigs, the brush, the sun. Nothing is boiled. Everything is persuaded. The Thai woman's table is a map of this world. Fine-toothed combs of boxwood and horn. Nitro combs narrower for the work everyone pretends not to need. Pincers, curling tongs, warming and cooling in turn. Pads and rolls, rats, if you're honest, that lift and shape. Ribbons, silk laces, and a pincushion bristling like a tame hedgehog. Pomatum in small alabaster pots, one plain, one perfumed with orange flower, one with musk and civet for evenings that must declare themselves. Gum arabic or sugar water glaze set small scrolls at the temples. A dusting of powder finishes the whole with a civilized haze. Lice, the enemy without heraldry, are handled by routine rather than drama. Bright light, regular combing, patience. Vinegar and rosemary steeped together loosen the small cement that makes knits so faithful. Caps and coifs, always laundered often. Carry little sachets of wormwood or rue. Bed hangings are aired. Brushes cleaned. In stubborn cases, apothecaries will murmur of stronger ointments whose ingredients would make a modern reader blanch. The court version is restraint. Comb, wash the linen, air the pillows. Keep the dog brushed, and let winter help. Men's faces are their own frontier. Beards are not mere hair. They're rhetoric. You'll see spades, stiletto points, the Spanish fork, the Cadiz memory in whiskers that say, "I was there." Barbers shape them with a steady hand and a friendly razor, then smooth in pomade or bear's grease scented enough to persuade even bear's grease to mind its manners. Mustaches are trained with wax and, if the owner is ambitious, fine wire to help a flourish that does not droop. Between courses, dyes are available. Walnut holes for brown, compounds of iron and vitriol for black. They work, and they exact their tithe. A beer guard, a graceful band of linen, keeps everything tidy in sleep. A small comb in a pocket case proves useful after soup. HEADWEA are as the silent partner in hygiene. Nothing hard ever kisses hair directly. A clean linen coif or cap sits between scalp and velvet, catching sweat and powder so hats and hoods live longer and smell like wealth rather than weather. Women's attifits and French hoods rely on buckram, wire, and hidden stitching. The coif anchors them, and pins, so many pins secure the whole. Men's hats carry sweatbands you can replace before you replace the hat. A drop of rosemary water at the edge, and the world believes you perspired decorously. Evening undoes what morning did. Powder is tapped free with a soft brush or coaxed away with the same stale-bred trick the face enjoys. Curls are unpinned in the order they were pinned. A little oil to the ends, a slow brush, and hair is braided. Loosely for the night so it remembers harmony at dawn. Wigs rest on their stands. Pins return to their hedgehog. The brazier, having worked the day's tongs, becomes only warmth again. Barbers are hygiene's public face. Their shops are bright with glass and steel, busy with talk. They shave, cup, lance the occasional unimpressive boil, and sell little pots of possibility pomades, powders, toothpicks and silver for those who understand banquets, scent waters in stopper vials. The pole outside whirls its red and white memory, blood and bandage, craft and care. In a city that believes air carries illness, a clean, perfumed room with hot water and sharp razors is almost medicine. What of the disgusting ledger? Animal. Fats and pomades, civet from a cat's glandular confidence, bear's grease domesticated by orange peel. Wigs that require combing for creatures as well as tangles. Dye recipes with an appetite for eyebrows if misused. Yet look at the system. Linen as buffer, powder as purifier, herbs as habit, combs as law, pins as infrastructure. Hair is constructed, deconstructed, and kept between the two in a state the portrait painter can recognize without lying. The queen herself is the thesis. After smallpox, her hair thinned, her image did not. She answered biology with art wigs that announced flame and youth, tire women with degrees in architecture, jewels set where a like would never forget them. The message to her court was simple. Control yourself, and thus the world believes you can control it. Cleanliness, compliance, and a curl that holds through a council. This is Statcraft. So the morning returns. The brazier wakes, pincers warm. A comb glides and clicks, a curl takes. A ribbon knows where to settle. Your head becomes a statement again, tidy, scented, persuasive. If the day requires a crown, it will sit without quarrel. If it asks only for a hat, it will doff without evidence of chaos. Next time, on the road with cleanliness royal progresses. Portable beds in baths, field laundries, traveling privies. Water that won't betray you, and how to arrive smelling like rank rather than the road. Bring a willow patterned ewer if you have one. A leather bottle will also do. Harness the mules and count the trunks. We are going on progress, Elizabeth's summer campaign of policy and pageant, in which a court the size of a small town goes visiting. It spares London's granaries, flatters loyal subjects, and gives. Plague fewer opportunities to whisper in crowded rooms. It is also the sternest test of Tudor cleanliness, a moving target that insists upon smelling like sovereignty, not the road. First, the machinery of motion. The court does not simply pack, it divides. The great wardrobe mining stored textiles in London. The wardrobe of robes arranging what Her Majesty actually wears. The wardrobe, or removing wardrobe, of beds and stuff of household comforts. The privy lodgings with their intimate particulars all become caravans. Yeomen of the removing wardrobe move ahead with hangings, carpets, bed of estate, canopy, stools, and the small, crucial things that make a strange chamber become the queen's. Each bit is numbered, inventoried, and sworn to. Bed curtains match to their valances, carpets to their rooms. A canopy that knows its exact span of ceiling. Travel eats cleanliness without apology. So we build defenses. Trunks are leathered, stitched tight against dust, lined with paper and sachets of lavender, orris, and wormwood. Canvas cart covers are tarred to sulk at rain. Garments rest between sheets of linen like letters between pages. Sweet bags are tucked into every ambiguity. A rolling greenhouse of herbs follows the court. Rosemary and bay for the kitchens. Lavender and orris for the rooms, mint for the stomach. Rue and wormwood to persuade small creatures to stay elsewhere. Beds are not left to chance. Inns are for courtiers and servants. The queen sleeps only where loyalty has beaten the mattresses first. Even then, the wardrobe prefers its own architecture. A traveling bed of estate posts, tester, rails, and hangings arrives before she does. Chamberers strip and air local bedding, beat anything that can be beaten, lay down fresh rushes strewn with herbs, and hang the queen's curtains to catch the room's breath and change it. A warming pan and brisk hand see off damp. If the house is newly whitewashed, hosts often oblige. So much the better. Lime has a practical opinion about vermin. Bathing on the road is not cancelled. It is adapted. A collapsible tub-hooped wood or stout leather can be set up in a closet or a screened corner. Water comes in heated pails. Cloths and towels are ready in ranks. Add a handful of rosemary or bay to the water, perhaps a little wine for cheer, and the steam writes a kinder story than the coach dust. Hair is less washed, more coaxed, vinegar and herb rinses, long brushing by the brazier, a dab of pomatum to bridle flyaways that believe hedgerows are a suggestion. A field foot bath after a day of ruts is morale itself. Bay, vinegar, warmth, and the certainty you will not murder your shoes tomorrow. The privy arrangements travel too. A close stool with a lidded pod lives behind a screen wherever the queen lives. Liners of cloth, ashes for discretion, lids that fit, and grooms who know their business. Contents removed swiftly to a proper pit or house of office. Out in the open country between houses, a little tent or carriage curtain makes a stool of ease, of surprising dignity. Water, vinegar, and linen wipes are part of the kit. Hands are rinsed as they would be at table. Everyone knows why a screen is erected. No one says so. Water on the road is a notorious flirt. You smile only after due diligence. Springs wells. With a good local reputation, boiled water used for possets. Barley waters and teas of mint, sage, or rosemary keep the throat honest. Otherwise, small beer, ale, and wine carry the day. Brewed, boiled, fermented. Safer verbs than ladled from a ditch. A lemon slipped into your beaker is not only fashion. It is a little private understanding with prudence. For the upper echelons, a chest of waters, distilled herb waters, travels as a portable pharmacy that also happens to taste like civilization. The road diet is cleanliness with crusts. Pies are architecture for food safety. Raised pastes, seal and meats that have already met heat and spice. The crust can be eaten or simply serve as a noble box. Cold roast beef, capon, cured fish, marchpane, comfits, and manchard bread ride well. The spicery chest goes with pepper, cloves, ginger, cinnamon. A cook ahead with the harbingers, the advance. Party, secures kitchens, lime-scrubbed tables, a good draft through the larder, and an oven that knows its work. When the queen arrives, her first bite tastes like confidence. Laundries become amphibious. A bucking tub is set up near a clean-running stream. Lees brewed in a kettle, poured through linen, and chased with river water that has the decency to move. White linens dry on hedges, on lines, or on sweet grass if the weather behaves. Bluing bags coax brightness back from the road. Shirts, shifts, cuffs, and ruffs rotate in relays. Nothing relies on later. The starch kitchen becomes a traveling circus. Wheat starch, a portable brazier, goffering irons, and poking sticks wrapped in cloth, little boards, and small patience. You can starch-proof a rough on a trestle in a stable yard if you have to. And someone always has to. The groom of the wardrobe's toolkit becomes an encyclopedia. Needles, silk thread, beeswax, fuller's earth and crumbs for stains, whiting and spirits of wine for jewels that learned about dust, leather dressings for shoes, neat's foot oil for coach harness, a small still to refresh rosewater, tones of orris to scent 24 rooms. That yesterday belonged to spiders. A lemon rides in every chest like a patron saint of stains. Pins dear, counted move in disciplined files from cushion to gown and back again. Hosts understand the hygiene. Pageant is part of the honor. Weeks before the court arrives, they scour, whitewash, sweep chimneys, rehang doors that used to pretend to close, beat tapestries, line garderobes with fresh rushes and lime, set herbs in window embrasures, mend conduits, and pray to every saint. Of plumbing, their still rooms brew Hungary water by the gallon. Their laundries wage a private war with every tablecloth they own. Their stewards calculate how to keep ale sweet and meat brisk. The queen will rest here. The house will never be cleaner than on the day before she does dot. Travel multiplies pests because it multiplies strangers. The antidote is routine. Trunks opened in sunlight. Bed hangings brushed and aired. Coats shaken outside. Dogs combed until the brush is honest. Flea powders, orris, and a little mercury sublimate in some reckless recipes are applied with respect and restraint. Better to prevent than to chase. A sachet tucked into a hem. A coif laundered more often. A winter morning's frost enlisted to freeze ambitions out of furred dot roads add their own particular brand of disgusting. Mud in summer if it has been. Thinking about rain, dust if it has not. Coaches breathe hedges. Litters swing. Saddles remember men. Boots collect the geography of 5 counties. The response is a rhythm. Scrape, dry, brush, oil. Patents for a lady who will cross a courtyard that believes it is a moat. Cloaks are shaken and then hung where a draft can be kind. Hats are brushed, bands changed, and their innocent inner coifs laundered so they never learned the word rancid. Arrivals are choreographed to look like grace. At the gate, a silver ewer and basin glint. Hands are washed and dried on napery with a better pedigree than some nights. In the privy lodgings, traveling carpets go down. The queen's bed blooms into being. Sweet bags vanish into unseen corners, and a posy appears on the window ledge with the view. A footbath waits. Fresh shifts are laid by, and a gown that has never once met a rut is lifted from a trunk that smells like orris and resolve. By the time she sits to be seen, the road has been edited out. Disease is the road's invisible stowaway. The court manages it with geography and ritual. Progresses prefer clean airs, avoid suspect towns, and sometimes nudge their route at the whisper of hot sickness. Strangers are managed. Who comes near? Who waits without? Pomanders hang from belts. Vinegar sponges ride in boxes. And posies of herbs greet noses at thresholds. Not nonsense if you think air carries illness. Quarantine is blunt, sometimes cruel, and by their lights merciful. And what of the lavish? Waste that follows 1,000 boots and 50 carts? Much is temporary. Rushes renewed, lime thrown, water fetched until your well forgets to be surprised. Calm farmers do their practical, discreet work. The court moves on. The house remains. Cleaner, poorer, and prouder. In the ledgers, a note about candles. In the rushes, a memory of musk. In the kitchen, new hooks where there didn't used to be any. Cleanliness leaves footprints. Is it disgusting? If you focus on the ruts, the shared tubs, the close stools. Logistics, the bed hangings that have seen 3 counties since Michaelmas perhaps. If you watch the system, it is admirable. A traveling city that unrolls hygiene like a carpet washing at the gate. Herbs in the rafters. Linen as diplomacy, vinegar as punctuation, cats as staff, starch as doctrine. It is not sterile. It is disciplined. And discipline is what lets a queen arrive, smelling of bergamot rather than of Berkshire. The trumpets sound, the heralds call, and the court is off again, rooms folded, kitchens packed, the bed traveling like a tame ship. The road is a long, dusty argument. The court's answer is order. Next time. Illness and the sick room sweating and syrups. Vinegar and vigilance. Plague measures. Perfume pomanders. And why a clean linen shift could feel like medicine. Bring a posy. The physicians will bring Latin. We can bring sense. When health fails, courtly cleanliness changes key. The same hands that starch a ruff now scald a spoon. The same nose that appraises musk now judges whether air is honest. Medicine speaks Latin. The sickroom speaks laundry. Between them, survival. Tries to make a bargain. Begin with the creed behind the cures. Physicians think in humors: blood, phlegm, choler, melancholy balanced, health, or out of place, trouble. Remedies nudge the body toward harmony by cooling what is too hot, drying what is too moist, opening what is stopped, strengthening what is weak. It sounds like poetry until you're the poem. The practical upshot is regimen, a moderated diet, careful air, orderly sleep, controlled evacuations, and the passions of the mind kept civil. When illness arrives, everything is adjusted to persuade the body back to its polite self. The sick room is staged with purpose. A bed by a window for light and air, not a draft. A persuasion. Curtains are drawn back by day and closed by night. Rugs go out, rushes are renewed. Superfluous hangings are sent to gossip elsewhere. They harbor what no one invited. Floors. Air scrubbed, and then wiped with vinegar water that redraws the room's outline. The chamber pot is lidded. A basin for hand washing stands ready with warm water and a sigh of rosemary. If there is a fire, it is tended for warmth without smoke. A pan of vinegar on the hearth is encouraged to be emblematic as well as aromatic. Linen becomes medicine. Fresh sheets feel like blessing and, accidentally, act like hygiene. Shirts and shifts are changed often to carry away sweat and sourness. Pillowcases are swapped before they speak. Cloths are boiled in lye, rinsed, and dried in clean air. The laundress becomes a quiet apothecary. If the sickness is fierce, straw under the bed is removed and burned. Better to offend Neptune than to negotiate with miasma. Fever is courtly common. Cooling foods, barley water, almond milk, thin pottages, stewed apples are praised. Syrup of violets or roses cools the mouth and flatters the mood. Oxymel, honey and vinegar, cuts thirst and conceit alike. A posset, ale or wine thickened with milk, becomes a vehicle for sleep and strength spiced when cheer is needed. Saffron. When sweating is the strategy. If a doctor orders a kindly sweat, the patient is wrapped, warmed, and offered small sips of hot, cordial drinks until sheets testify. It feels like superstition. It is in fact a primitive calculus about heat. Pores and hope. Purgings and bleedings are part of the playbook. A vein opened at the elbow. A cupping glass applied to draw a blush where the physician desires it. A gentle purge with rhubarb or senna when the belly has been stubborn. Modern mind's object. Tudor bodies comply, and sometimes feel better because being tended is itself a medicine. The better practitioners watch the patient more than the theory. If strength wavers, the lancet stays sheathed. The apothecary's bench offers 1,000 small promises. Venice treacle, theriac, a gorgeous. Smelling of spices, herbs, and a memory of antidotes. Mithridate, an older cousin with a similar swagger. Diascordium to quieten a wayward stomach and kindly sleep. Conserve of roses to comfort the heart, both literal and poetry. Waters and cordials abound. Cinnamon water for wind and wit, mint. For rebellious bowels, scabious and angelica against infection by reputation, if not by assay. Aquavita to stand in for courage. A pearl dissolved in vinegar is dramatic, expensive, and not unknown. A bezoar stone is worn or dipped for virtue against poison. A unicorn's horn, a narwhal's, truthfully, graces a cup that insists it can tell mischief from wine. Plague remakes. The rules. The court does not linger near it. Theaters close. Assemblies shrink. Progress routes bend toward clean airs. Suspect houses are watched, and visitors are discouraged with compassion in one hand and firmness in the other. For those who must stay, there are orders. Isolate the sick. Burn or scald what they touch. Air chambers with relentless care. Set posies and vinegar sponges at the nose. Fumigate with rosemary, juniper, frankincense smokes that write. A different story on the air. Plague waters distilled from scabious, angelica, ruar, taken as prophylactic hope. A pomander of ambergris, benzoin, storax, and civet hangs at the belt. Miasma is the enemy, and aromatics are the army. When buboes swell, the surgeon or wise woman is called. Poultices of figs and onions, drawing salves of galbanum and wax, sometimes a lancing when ripeness insists. It is not pretty. It is earnest. The patient is kept warm but not oppressed, fed lightly and washed. Some cures pigeon split and, applied to the solace, amulets of dried toads walk the line between folklore and fear. Even here, cleanliness does quiet work. Linens changed, sores bathed with wine or vinegar, bandages fresh and boiled. A watcher attends, masked not with a beak but with prudence. A nosegay under the nose. A change of shift before returning to her children. Colds and coughs get more amiable remedies. Syrup of coltsfoot, licorice, and anise. A chest plaster of wax and oils to warm the breath. Steam from thyme or hyssop under a towel. A spoon of honeyed wine before bed. Gargles with sage and salt for throats that have argued with madrigals. The bed is kept a little upright. Curtains of midair without encouraging drafts to play tyrant. Surgery, when it intrudes, tries to be clean before it tries to be clever. Knives are bright and wiped with wine. Hands are washed. Ligatures are boiled. The barber surgeon's shop smells like spirits and civet trying to be friends. Wounds are dressed with lint and ointments of turpentine and oil. Suppuration is encouraged, and then persuaded to stop. Bandages are changed, and the basin of vinegar stands like a small altar to caution. They don't know microbes. They know stink and sloth are enemies. Mind and mood are part of the prescription. Melancholy is treated as a weather pattern one. Can influence. Music in the next room. A friend who reads. A lapdog confessing no sin save shedding. A posy on the sill. Physicians write diets for the passions of the mind as carefully as for supper. Avoid sudden anger. Cultivate moderate mirth. Sleep at proper hours. A tidy room and clean linen often accomplish what a draught of Mithridate only claims. Household. Knowledge runs beside the learned. Receipt books hold a water for the plague, to cool a fever, a cordial to comfort after bleeding. Women steward entire pharmacies in stillrooms. Rosemary, rue, scabious, elderflower. rose vinegar and mint juleps, the Tudor kind. Ointments of poppy and camphor to coax sleep. They observe, they record, they adjust. If a syrup soothed a cousin at Shrovetide, it goes into the book. If it failed at Michaelmas, a note says so in neat italic. This is empiricism. Written in domestic ink. Death is not a stranger, and cleanliness attends even here. Bodies are washed, shrouded, and speedily buried when contagion prowls. Rooms are aired, bedding scalded or burned, floors washed with vinegar, and the house sits for a while with its windows like open eyes. Bells toll, bills of sickness are whispered. Life continues with a sharper respect for routine. The court, which understands continuity as policy, insists on every ritual that says, we go on, and we go on cleanly. Was it disgusting? Some measures, yes. Bloodletting on a hot day. Poultices that smell like a kitchen's guilty conscience. Pomanders that fight odor with more odor. Sweat encouraged under too many blankets. Plague houses marked and watched. Yet step back and you'll see a pattern of scents grappling with mystery. Isolation that curbs contagion. Linens boiled, rooms aired, vinegar and wine used as solvents and antiseptics without the word. Diets adjusted to what a sick stomach can. Bear. Hands washed because hands are hands. In a world without microscopes, the court built a hygiene that could be taught, repeated, and enforced. That is not ignorance. It is craft. When the fever breaks. The first clean shift is ceremony. Windows open wider. The bed is remade from the mattress up. A little fresh straw crackles underfoot. A sprig of rosemary is tucked in the new pillow. The apothecary's vials are sent back gleaming and accounted for. The patient stares at broth as if it were a saint and sleeps as if linen had invented tenderness. Outside, the palace walks softly for a day. Next time. The life of linen flax. The field, loom to laundry, shirt to rag to paper. We'll follow the fabric that made cleanliness possible. Count the cost of white, and watch how a court's virtue is woven, washed, and finally written. Bring sun if you can. The bleach green. Wants it. Follow the white thread. It begins in a muddy field, runs through rooms that smell of starch and sunshine, becomes a shirt that pretends to be your bath, and, when it can clothe no more, is reborn as paper on which cleanliness is recorded. Linen is the court's quiet miracle. It carries away yesterday, and returns as virtue. Start where it doesn't look like virtue at all. Flax. Sown thick to grow long and fine, it ripples blue with flowers for a breath of summer, then turns to seed and straw. Harvested by pulling, not cutting, so every inch is saved. Bundled, dried, and then redded laid in dew on grass or soaked in ponds until the gummy pectins loosen. This part is not poetic. Redding reeks. The ponds complain. Neighbors complain louder. But the fibers slip at last from the woody core, and work begins in earnest. Breaking with a wooden blade to crack the herds, scutching with a flat knife. To scrape, then heckling, dragging through iron combs until coarse line becomes long, silky strick. The pile of tow, shorter fibers, isn't wasted. It will become rough cloth and stuffing. The strick is dressed to a distaff, and spinning begins fingers drawing wet spun finesse. Twist flowing to spindle or wheel. A good spinner makes thread. That looks like calm. Weaving is order turned audible. Treadles thump, pedals click, shuttles whisper. Plain weave for strong sheets and shirts. Diaper for napkins and towels, those geometric diamonds that drink as they adorn. Damask for tablecloths that tell stories in reversible light. Widths are what the loom allows. Lengths are what the weavers, they and the customer's purse, allow. Bolts are measured in ells. Quality is counted in threads per inch, and in the evenness that only practice gives. White, though, is not given. It is made. Fresh woven linen looks the color of patience grayish, a little raw. The Low Countries perfected Hollands and, Cambrics on great bleaching greens. Bolts washed, bucked and lye, rinsed, soured. Spread to the sun, repeated until daylight seems woven in. England copies the dance as best it can. A bleach green by a clean running stream. Women with paddles and courage, weather as foreman. Bucking is the heart of it, hot lye. Water poured slowly through hardwood ash, ladled over the cloth in a bucking tub until oils surrender. Rinsing follows again and again in moving water. Souring sometimes with buttermilk, whey, or vinegar lifts what lye loosens and persuades brightness. Then the grass, spread smooth, pinned against the wind, turned with care, guarded from greedy birds and gossiping cows. Sun and time do what no single recipe can. Soap visits sparingly. Plain lye and tallow for the strong stuff. Deer castile for what touches faces and pride. For the final whisper of white, a bluing bag appears, fine cloth filled with a pinch of smalt or indigo woad. A touch of blue tricks the eye into seeing snow where cream once lived. It is stagecraft and mathematics both. When the linen is as pale as the laundress's patience allows, it's wrung, dried, and beaten-beetled with wooden bats to soften. Slick stones of glass or polished agate glide over it to lay fibers flat and make a gloss you can nearly hear. Grandhouse's own. Screw presses that tame tablecloths into diplomatic planes. Marking comes next. Households initial their linen with tiny cross-stitched letters near the hem. Sometimes a coronet curls there too. The wardrobe's ledgers echo the marks. 6 pairs of sheets, Holland marked A. 12 napkins, diaper RW. Menders keep the lot. Honest, a frayed edge is rolled and stitched. A tear receives a darn that's a drawing in thread. A worn area gets a lovely invisible patch. Good linen lives 9 lives if someone loves it. Now the part where linen becomes cleanliness by proxy. In a world that bathes sparingly, the shirt and shift are the first bath. They sit between skin and the day, drink sweat, intercept oils, and are changed often daily at the top, prudently elsewhere, carrying away what water cannot. You smell like rose water and discipline because your linen has been at war on your behalf since dawn. Table linen does similar moral work. A white cloth signals safety, that the table is clean, the food respected, the household in order. Napkins, brilliant and big, preach the same sermon with every dab. Towels in the ewer room speak a liturgy of hands washed before mouths begin. Laundry day is a campaign more than a chore. Weather is consulted as if it were a bishop. Bucking tubs are scalded, ashes are sifted, water is drawn and heated. Boards and bats are set out. Strong hands lift, pour, wring, and wring again. Linen is sorted by character. Tablecloths with their own pride. Ruffs with their starchy theology. Shirts and shifts the army. Towels and napkins, the skirmishers. Lie bites, skin reddens, aprons save what they can. Rinsing is done in moving water, drying on hedges, lines, or sweet grass. Bluing bags kiss the rinse. Starch kitchens wake for the pinners and rough makers. Goffering irons stand like a row of tiny cannons poised to bring order to frill. The smell is the reward. Sun, soap, and river. Fresh linen is a metaphor you can fold. Storage is hygiene as architecture. Linen presses swallow piles. The best have great threaded screws that drop. A platen with the finality of a judge. Between layers go sachets, lavender, orris, rosemary, to deny moths and make opening the press a small ceremony. Cedar chests house coarser linens. Peppered papers line drawers. Lists are pinned discreetly beneath shelf edges so no cloth vanishes. Into legend. The press room is cool, high, quiet, a temple of white, where it takes its toll and the cycle turns. Fine shirts retire to become everyday shifts. Shifts become work smocks. Smocks become clouts and dishcloths. Dishcloths become lamp. Rags, lamp rags become kindling and legend. But the best end is paper. Enter the ragman with his bell and his bag. Household keepers save clean white rags, not greasy, not foul, for sale by weight. The paper mill buys virtue second-hand. Stampers, great wooden hammers, rise and fall, pounding linen to a wet fluff. Water turns the wheels. Vats steam with. A smell like boiled books. The pulp bleached by sun and water more than by art, waits in a vat. The papermaker dips a mold, a wire screen and a wooden frame the decal, and lifts a newborn sheet. Water sheeting away, the pulp's tiny fibers. Locking arms. Laid onto felts in a stack, then pressed, then lifted and hung in a drying loft where warm air is a colleague. The sheets turn from damp nap to something that rustles like confidence. Sizing makes them write instead of weep. A gelatin size yes. From skins and hooves gives the surface a polite resistance, so ink sits and says its piece. The sheets are dried again, pressed again, and trimmed. If you hold one to the light, you might see the mill's watermark. A glove, a crown, a hand, a mill wheel. It is linen's second heraldry. Much of Elizabeth's government writes on imported paper from France and the Low Countries. But English, mills are humming. Rags from shirts that touched English skin become accounts that bind English purses. Thus linen completes a loop of cleanliness. It covered bodies so they could be thought clean. It covered tables so meals could begin daintily. It reappears as paper so laws about washing hands at the ewer and airing beds after illness can be recorded, copied, and enforced. The same fibers that spent their first life soaking sweat spend their second carrying ink. You could, if you were a poet with a ledger, say that whiteness becomes words. Was any of this disgusting? Parts are indelicate. Redding ponds that smell like a dragon's breath. Lye that bites skin. Sourings in whey and sometimes in liquids modern noses don't print on invitations. Rag sorting in rooms where dust is historic. Gelatine size made. From creatures with opinions. But the pattern is sane and elegant. Plant to fiber by controlled decay and comb. Thread to cloth by skill. Gray cloth to white by washing, lye, sun, and time. Dirt removed by linen that is then cleansed by the same. Agents. Rags saved and alchemized into the very medium of memory. Cleanliness here is not a moment. It's a life cycle dot, so the next time a servant lifts a stack of sheets that gleam like winter cloud, see the field, the pond, the combs, the loom, the bleach green, the bucking tub, the beetle, the press, and finally the quire of paper on which the laundress's wages and the apothecary. Rosewater are carefully itemized. White is expensive because it is labor. Clean is costly because it is continuous. Close the press. The room smells of lavender. Someone somewhere is already pulling flax for the batch that will be your grandchild's napkin and your solicitor's. Folio. Leaning keeps a house honest. Next time. The house of office privies, garderobes, cesspits, gong farmers, street sweepings, and the stern civility that keeps filth political rather than personal. Bring a sprig of rue and a steady stomach. Take the sprig of rue and hold it politely to your nose. We have arrived at the house of office, the part of court life everyone uses and no one praises. Here, cleanliness stops being decorative and becomes constitutional. Fail this and no. Rough, however starched, can save your reputation. Begin with the furniture. At the royal end, the close stool, a handsome chair whose dignity conceals a lidded pan. Wood, leather, velvet if you're important. A pewter, earthenware, or tin copper pot within. A lid that fits because mercy is mechanical. A screen gives the fiction of privacy. A small table bears a silver urine basin, linen wipes, a box of sweetened papers or soft rag, maybe a vial of rose vinegar. A trusted gentlewoman for a queen, or gentleman for a king, manages the right attendance so intimate it becomes power. The office that oversees this intimacy carries clout because bodies are honest and access is rarer than diamonds. Beyond the closet, architecture does the heavy lifting. Medieval habit carries into Tudor practice. Garderobes, stone or timber. Cubbies built into thick walls, empty by chute into a pit, a moat, or a ditch that pretends to flow. In townhouses, jakes perch over brick or timber-lined cesspits under yards and alleys. Country houses may stack 2 or 3 seats side by side, a social geometry no modern poet will defend. Windows with louvers face the prevailing wind. The walls are lime-washed. Lime offends vermin and memory. Herbs hang where polite fiction meets practical wish. Rue, wormwood, lavender, southernwood. Ashes or a handful of dry earth follow a visit like a benediction. Lime is sprinkled when the household is feeling thorough. Chamber pots multiply like metaphors. Pewter for pride, earthenware for sense, wood for servants, leather for the road. Night makes everything farther away. The pot makes the night navigable. In the morning, grooms and maids perform their quiet rounds to the house of office or the midden. This is choreography, not confession. The cesspit is the city's unglamorous. Engine. A good one is lined, covered, vented, and sighted away from a well. A bad one writes its opinions into the water table. London knows this and legislates like a scolded ant. Privies to be set at proper distances. Drains not to discharge into your neighbor's patience. Dunghills, laystils, kept outside the walls where carts can find them. The statute of sewers. And city bylaws breed commissions, clerks, and fines. It's not romance. It's survival written in clerk's ink. When pits fill, specialists arrive at night. Gong farmers, also rakers, nightmen, pull on leather, light a lantern, and descend with long-handled scoops, buckets, hooks, and courage. They work after dark because of odor and dignity, and because streets at night belong to those who clean. Them. The job is dangerous gases smother, walls slump, ladders lie. It is also well paid enough to make a man tolerate the neighbor's daylight silence. Buckets rise, carts fill, bells tinkle, so householders bring out ash and sweepings. The load goes to laystils, and thence by cart or barge to fields beyond the city. Night soil becomes tomorrow's cabbages. Filth is not thrown away. It is redirected. Streets acquire and lose grime by policy. Each ward has scavengers and rakers. Each household has duty days. Market waste is swept. Butcher's offal is supposed to go to licensed renderers, not into the fleet ditch, supposed is carrying a lot of civic disappointment. Pigs are banned from roaming London's main streets, not because the city dislikes pigs, but because pigs like everything the piggery city dislikes. Watercourses are kept moving when commissions have their way, and punished when they don't. The Thames is a tide, a blessing, and a remorse. It flushes, and it remembers. Public houses of easement exist where crowds do, on London Bridge. In earlier times, shooting straight into the river's forgetfulness, near markets, by gates. Taverns offer corners and courtyards that speak for themselves. Language is careful. One goes to make water, to use the house, to ease nature. A polite pause in conversation is not remark. It is a compact dot at court. Ceremony keeps filth personal only long enough to be removed. After the close stool, hands are washed warm water poured over fingers into a basin. Towels used once and gone to the laundry. Vinegar rose, rosemary, or plain is the room's punctuation. Pastils of aromatic resin smolder in a small pan if the air argues. Sweep bags swing from chair arms. Floors are strewn with clean rushes, more often here than anywhere else. The closet is aired like a conscience. Materials around filth are chosen with forethought. Lime wash on walls to seal and sour. Lead or tile linings in pits to delay betrayal. Glazed earthenware pots that do not absorb memory. Lids that fit. Doors that close. Slats that let wind agree with you. If the house is grand, a guttered chute. Drops from a high garderobe to a moat that moves. If the house is wise, it has a trap to catch whatever would rather not be introduced to the carp. Urine is not only exit. It is industry. Fuller's shops prize it. Its ammonia scours wounds. Tanners court it with apologies. Laundresses use a little-aged lant for greasy collars that have heard too much counsel. Gunpowder men, later and zealously, will scratch floors for nitrate. This is chemistry before the word got its degree, and it leaves the nose with opinions. Yet nothing is wasted because nothing can be. Plague and hot sickness sharpen the broom. Orders insist. Privies scoured with lime. Bedding burnt if touched by contagion. Dung heaps removed. Alleys aired. Houses marked and washed keep there. Filth and their breath inside until the wind of illness dies. Harshness, by their lights, is compassion on a city's scale. Etiquette and engineering meet in small details that keep disgust at bay. Ash kept in a bucket near the seat. A small shutter in the wall for ventilation that doesn't invite January to sit down. A shelf with a nosegay and a taper, because seeing helps and smelling helps more. A mat for shoes in a basin within reach, so hands don't negotiate with. Doors before water. Regular Lime Day, marked in the household book like prayers and pay. The city's daily soundtrack includes cleaning even when no one admits it. The raker's bell, the scrape of a broom, the scuff of a cart, the soft hiss. When lime hits a damp wall. At dawn, gutters show their conscience. By noon, someone's thrown peelings to the geese. By evening, the bell returns and the cycle recommences. Civility is repetition with purpose, Dodd. Is it disgusting? Parts are frankly unromantic. Shared chutes. Pits that fill, carts that leak. The fleet ditch on a hot day. The gong farmer at his trade. A tavern yard after a fair. But the system is neither careless nor naive. It is legal, layered, and scheduled, pits lined and emptied. Ash and lime used like tools, streets swept by office, watercourses policed, filth moved out of sight and into utility, hands washed at every threshold where bodies become politics again. In an age without sewer mains and bleach, people live decently because they made filth obedient. The Queen's own practice is the thesis in miniature. Her stool is clean, her attendants drilled, her linens frequent, her rooms aired, her closets perfumed, her refuse someone's responsibility with a name and a wage. Power here is the ability to make what is private also well managed. The court. Copies are because they must, and because the alternative is not invited to supper. Step out from behind the screen. The nosegay can relax. You will never look at a lime-washed corner the same way again, next time. The calendar of clean, what happens daily, weekly, seasonally. From Monday wash to Lent's fish, spring bleach greens to Michaelmas saltings, and the great annual boil. That makes a household smell like resolve. Bring a ledger. We're going to schedule virtue. Cleanliness at Elizabeth's court isn't the mood. It's a timetable. Order arrives not as a miracle, but as a rhythm. Daily gestures, weekly campaigns, seasonal offensives, and annual rites that turn a smoky, busy world into one that looks polished and smells like Oristot begin with the day, which starts with water. The yeomen and grooms of the Ewry bring basins, ewers, and towels to the privy lodgings. Hands and faces are rinsed before any man claims breakfast or audience. Floors are swept, hearths raked, and yesterday's ashes rehomed. Rushes are straightened or replaced where feet have been too honest. Windows are cracked to let night out. Bed curtains are loosened to air, then drawn again against the morning's impudence. The morning's other rituals are small, exact, and repetitive. Chamberers turn beds whose owners have risen. Laundresses collect shifts and shirts sort for the day's bucking and set aside roughs for the starch kitchen. The scullery scrubs last night's pewter with sand and vinegar. The pantry counts bread and salt. The buttery polishes flagons. The spicery locks itself and then unlocks itself to weigh cinnamon as if it were counsel. In the barber's corner, razors sing. Combs begin their arithmetic. If a counsel sits, the perukes are freshened like arguments. Noon insists on hands again. The ewery parades ewers and towels to hall and chamber. Napery goes down wide as promise. Knives gleam. After dinner, the procession reverses. Table linen, shaken, stained cloths salted and set aside. Meat safe wiped. Floor strewn anew with clean rushes and a skitter of herbs. Afternoon belongs to mender stockings darned, seams overseen, buttons reseated. Evening is for unpinning the day. Wigs to their stands, powder brushed away, shoes wiped, and the last sweep before tapers say that dirt must wait until dawn. Overlay the week and the pattern thickens. Monday is wash day in half of England and, in most of the court's imagination, bucking tubs are set. Lye is poured, kettles steam. White linens begin their 2-day journey through heat, cold, sun, and patience. Tuesday receives them for rinsing, bluing, beating, pressing. Wednesday is starch and roughs. Wheat starch cooked and cooled. Linen fed, set, dried, and goffered into those persuasive cartwheels that make necks into architecture. Thursday often belongs to repairs and polishing. Harness oiled, shoes blacked, plate burnished with whiting and soft rags until reflections tell the steward he can see his own frown. Friday has a kitchen character. Fish day by the church's calendar, so scullery and larder are scoured with extra vinegar and sand. The smell of the river is politely escorted to the drain. Saturday is barber day for many. Beards trimmed, heads coaxed, nails ordered. The house of office gets its lime. The garderogues receive ash and a lecture. Sunday rests only the hands, not the standards. Clothes are brushed and laid out, shoes buffed, and the household stands still long enough to see whether its order still. Looks like virtue. Then the seasons arrive, and every room changes. Key dot spring is the bleach green, the broom, and the window latch. Once frost stops being treachery, hangings are taken down, carried into sharp sunlight, and beaten until last year. The parts and size. Tapestries that have been polite to moths all winter are combed, brushed, and aired. Beds are stripped to the ropes. Ticks are beaten, bolsters shaken. The undermattress layer, flock or straw, renewed. Floors are scrubbed with lye and rinsed. Walls are whitewashed where smoke has written its opinions too freely. Soot is argued out of chimneys by sweeps who follow birds' nests like detectives. Still rooms wake. Roses, later lavender, are distilled into waters. Vinegar is married to. Herbs. Syrups are put up against summer's fevers. Soap stocks are reckoned. Ash barrels are sifted for the year's bucking. Summer civility is vigilance. Air moves, and with it rumors of plague. The court plans progress and keeps its nose. Windows. Open, but gauged by drafts and discretion. Beds are lighter. Warming pans nap. The laundry works faster to keep pace with sweat. Shirts and shifts turn over more like water than like cloth. Flea powders sit at elbows. Dogs are combed until they gleam. Sweet bags multiply like promises. Kitchens stretch towards salads, cold meats, and pies that travel. The larder is watched. For heat and flies, privies are limed more often. Gutters are chastened before they can think of sulking. If the court moves, the schedule goes with it on wheels. Autumn is the preserver's parliament. Michaelmas is not only about rents, it's about rendering and salting. Meat is salted, soused, or smoked. The dairy's last enthusiasm becomes butter. Sealed in pots, apples are laid in straw. herbs hang to crisp. Vines are made honest. All this is sticky, briny, and thorough. It calls for extra scouring of tubs and knives, and for the good sense to sight the salting away from living noses. Tallow is rendered and poured. Candle stores are counted. Rushes for rushlights are gathered and dried. The starch kitchen takes a breath. Rough stiffen better in cool air. Wardrobe staff tally what must be mended before winter and what must be remade before the queen notices. Winter is soot's essay and linen's consolation. Fires burn hard. Smoke writes where it can. Snuffers keep wicks short. Candles are trimmed with the discipline of monks. Floors need more sweeping. The air more vinegar. Rooms more prudence. Warming pans glow. Hot bricks wrapped in flannel make. Friends with feet, bed curtains earn their keep. Chimneys are swept between storms. Doors are stuffed against drafts that argue at ankle level. Candlemas brings blessed of lights, and often the first great shakedown greens out. Smoke stains scrubbed, inventories reconciled, and a general sense that the house must shed the old year's memory before Lent borrows everyone's cheer. The calendar keeps holy days and clean days in each other's company, because both are habits. Quarter days, Lady Day, the 25th of March. Midsummer, the 24th of June. Michaelmas, the 29th of September. Christmas, the 25th of December, are when ledgers balance and wardrobes confess. Household stewards choose these moments for great inventories. Linens counted and marked. Plate weighed. Hangings inspected. Beds recorded. They are also when subscriptions to cleanliness are renewed. Lime and ash bought by the cart. Soap ordered. Candles contracted. Herbs pledged from a neighbor's plot. A household's credit and a household's cleanliness are cousins in the same book. Few specialized feasts run with their own chores. Whitsun and summer weddings press laundries. Progress season sharpens every pin. All Hallowtide's mummers mean floors that need scrubbing after shoes have remembered rain. Lent shifts the kitchen from meat to fish. Scullery work changes shape and scent, and drains prefer not to discuss it. Before Easter, a general whitening house, linen, soles is the mood. After harvest, a general scouring prepares the house to sit and smoke without resentment. Some tasks live by weather rather than weekday. Tapestries are beaten on bright, frosty mornings. The cold insults moths. The sun flatters color. Great. Washes are planned when wind promises to be a partner and the sky a friend. Line days are set when the wind will take the argument away from the house. Fumigations, juniper, rosemary, or a handful of frankincense are staged when a room has hosted too many boots or a cough that made people thoughtful. Bleeding, when ordered, bows to the almanac. Even barbers look at the moon and the veins. Chart before they tie a band. The kitchen has its own drum. Brewing small beer is a fortnightly oath malt mashed, bottom coaxed, barrels scoured until they squeak. Baking is weekly in big households, twice weekly when guests never stop arriving. Ovens are swept, peels sanded, dough troughs scalded. Scullions keep brass bright with sand in a hard hand. Spits are scoured. The floor's rushes renewed before fat teaches them Greek. Pantries stay colder with a cracked shutter. Larders hang meat where cats can patrol and flies cannot attend. The smell of a good kitchen is clean heat, yeast, and pepper, not ghostly fish and stale tallow. The wardrobe and the stillroom lay down their own seasons like musicians. May and June see rosewater by the gallon. July, lavender. Late summer, quince and medlar jellies that behave. Autumn, hippocras and spiced wines, filtered through cloth that returns to the laundry smiling purple. Winter evenings bring pomanders and pastilles rolled by the fire. Benzoin, storax, frankincense, ambergris if the purse is ambitious. Little paste that will sweeten a sick room or a sermon. All of these leave tools sticky and demand that cleanliness Be a partner, not an afterthought. What keeps disgusting at bay is not heroism, it's repetition. Ash by the privy door, refreshed. Vinegar in a basin, changed. Bluing bag, kissed to the rinse, then dried like a relic. Pins counted out. And counted back in. Brushes cleaned after they clean. Dogs combed after they love. Windows opened and then remembered. The house's lungs breathe because someone cracks them on a schedule. The Queen's lodgings are the metronome. Her daily hand-washing makes everyone. Elsa's inevitable. Her weekly wash makes Monday sacred. Her spring airing becomes a county sport. Her progress sets the summer's lanes to rights. Her Candlemas scouring becomes the reason 4 counties discover the underside of their beds. Cleanliness here is statcraft measured in hours and seasons. Is this exhausting? Yes, and it is the point. In an age without pipes that apologize or powders that burn away effort, cleanliness is a habit taught, not a product bought. The court's virtue is a calendar you can copy, a ledger of lie and lavender, of lime and ledgers, of sun and schedule. If you keep it, the house behaves, and so, usually, do people. Close the book. Tomorrow is Monday. The bucking tub is already thinking about it. Next time. Painted fair complexion, cosmetics, and the tooth. Cirrus and cochineal. Lip salves and breath pastilles, tooth powders and tongue scrapers, and how. To look like a miniature without dying like an apothecary's receipt. Bring a mirror and a lemon. Asterisk. Stand before a small mirror of polished steel. A basin of rose water at your elbow. A little box of mysteries in your hand. Cleanliness now becomes theater. The court's eye expects a skin like vellum, a mouth like, a seal on secrets, hair that behaves as rhetoric, and a breath that could sit beside a reliquary. Nature supplies the draft. The toilet makes the fair copy. Begin with the canvas. Complexion. Pallor is not sickness, it's status. Sun says you worked. White says you didn't. The boldest route to white is Cirrus white lead, often sold as Venetian, sometimes kissed with mercury for extra shine. It sits like moonlight and, in time, eats like rust. Skin thins, sores blossom, hair recedes. Teeth sulk. Everyone knows someone whom paint made handsomer and meant a caution. There are gentler artifices. A glare of egg white smoothed over the face to set a mild sheen. A rice or wheat starch dusted to quiet shine and even tone. Wash of rose water distilled in the still room. A mask of bread and milk, almond milk, or honey and vinegar to soften. Lemon or buttermilk rubbed with hope will bleach over weeks. Sun avoided does more. Color is placed like punctuation sparingly and with nerve. Rouge comes by cochineal, a new world insect turned European secret, by vermilion, cinnabar, bright and bossy, by red ochre and madder, honest, earthy. A wax-based salve, beeswax warmed with a touch of oil, receives the tint and delivers it to cheek and lip. Some steep alkanet in oil to whisper a berry stain on the mouth. Too much, and you look like a mosque satire. Just enough, and you look like what poems keep threatening to describe. The Queen herself loves vermilion with control. Courtiers copy the control, if not the price. Eyes and brows tell rank and intent. A high, untroubled forehead stays fashionable from earlier Tudor days. Some still suppress their hairline with tweezers and bravery. Brows are shaped and darkened with burnt clove, lampblack mixed into a drop of oil, or a little soot from the hearth's clean corner. Lashes can be coaxed dark with the same. Heavy coal is foreign. Plague doctors' beaks belong to a different conversation. A dab of rose or fennel water clears the eyes white. The belladonna's dilating drops are an Italian indiscretion England. Mostly leaves to portraits and cautionary gossip. Hair is argument and emblem. Elizabeth's own red perukes, dozens are statcraft. Each says dynasty as plainly as a banner. Wigs exist long before the Restoration makes them municipal. False hair adds volume, not confession. Natural hair is washed seldom, dressed often. Rosemary, bay, and a little vinegar go into the rinse when washing happens. More commonly, brisk. Brushing by the fire, oil or pomatum to smooth. Pomatum being tallow or lard tamed by civet, musk, or orange peel, and powders of orris to scent and absorb. To lighten, there are waters of alum, lemon, and sun. Hats with open crowns make. Foreheads noble and hair bright the Venetian way England copies on a kinder day. Henna is a rumor, walnut a reality for darkening. Lice are a democracy. The answer is a fine-tooth comb, vinegar, heat, and frequent laundering of the coif. Remedies with mercury sublimate or arsenical depilatories exist. The wise prefer patience. And soap. Beards and men's faces are their own proclamation. A neat, squared beard reads sober. A Van Dyke is a century away. Barber soap with lather beaten from soap and hot water. Draw razors sparingly and finish with a wash of spirits or rose vinegar. Pomanders and scent gloves do the rest. Toothpick beard combing is a hobby and an alibi. Teeth and breath threaten to betray a court more swiftly than any mask. Sugar is joy and ruin both. Elizabeth herself is said to have teeth that confess. A sweet tooth. Cleanliness fights back with powders. Salt and sage dried and ground. Rosemary ash. Charcoal fine as a whisper. Pumice used carefully. A pinch of alum for firmness. Sometimes even coral or cuttlefish bone. A soft linen rag does the work. Toothbrushes proper are rare but not unknown in the 16th century's latter end. Tongue scrapers of silver or horn scrape eloquence clean. Mouthwashes are wine or vinegar diluted, scented with mint, cinnamon, myrrh, or clove. Chewing mastic or aniseed comfit sweetens with ceremony. Breath pastilles little lozenges of sugar, spice, and gum tragacanth make conversation braver. Tooth drawers ply streets and fairs with a flourish and a drum. The best barber surgeons clean tartar and counsel moderation. No one mentions floss, but a quill-slit toothpick minds the space between. Scents decide whether proximity feels like. Flattery or penance. Civet from the civet cat, musk from the deer, and ambergris from the sea's most aristocratic accident sit at the top of the purse. They are domesticated by roses, orange flower, lavender, rosemary, marjoram herbs. Shy purses can afford. Perfume reaches the skin by waters, by oils, by pomanders and pastils, and most persistently by linen. A scented shift is more persuasive than a scented wrist. Gloves gallanted with amber and citrus turn every gesture into a small theater. The room has its pastels. The person has a sachet. The boundary between both is where the court lives. Tools are modest and exact. Boxwood and ivory combs, boar bristle brushes, a slick stone for smoothing linen that also polishes a nail in a pinch, a small agate or glass for finishing gloss on hair strands, tweezers of brass, tiny spatulas of bone or silver for salves. Mirrors are small and honest. Polished steel keeps you disciplined. Blown glass backed with tinfoil is for those who like to believe flattery. Jars and pots are glazed and lidded. A dressing box is a cabinet of private treaties with vanity, lined with scented paper to teach everything to behave. Removal is as important as application. Oil lifts paint more kindly than zeal. Breadcrumbs rolled over the facelift powder without quarreling. Warm water with a twist of vinegar persuades pores to forget. Bed demands a clean shift if paint visited. Pillows know the truth and punish. Sloth with spots, the laundress will announce to the ledger. Etiquette is the invisible powder that makes artifice work. Heavy paint in daylight says either stage or something to hide. Both invite commentary. Court fashion permits cosmetics because the queen herself wears them. The trick is to perform naturalness with unnatural tools. Sumptuary laws. Mind fabrics and colors, not rouge pots, but Sherman's mind-painted faces with enthusiasm. One obeys both by subtlety. What is declared God's own complexion is in fact God's and Galen's and the good still rooms. Men scent more than they paint. Women paint more than they confess. Everyone pretends the morning's basin of rose water did the miracle. Health murmurs throughout. Lead, mercury, and orpiment for depilation, work, and then take their payment with interest. Tremor, sores, thinning hair, temper. A better receipt book prefers bismuth, rare in England, then rice or starch, almond oil, beeswax, vinegar, herbs, thyme, and good linen. Galen's cold cream, oil, beeswax, rosewater exists already, soothing honest faces back from weather and ceremony. Nothing keeps a face clearer than sleep, moderation, and servants who believe in laundry. Is it disgusting? Parts are a negotiation. Grease tamed into pomatum. Civet that begins like a stable and ends like a prince. Rouge that remembers the inside of a beetle. Powders that creep into collars. Depilatories that are braver than wise. Bad teeth behind good comfits. But the pattern is recognizably clean. Faces washed, paints removed, tools kept neat, towels. Boiled, scents used to refine, not to conceal rot, and a frank understanding that linen is the true cosmetic. The court may gild what it has, but it does not often let it fester. The mirror closes. The room smells of rose and a little courage. Outside, the air is bright enough to make even careful paint admit it is pretending. Next time, vermin and vigilance fleas. Lice, bedbugs, moths, mice and rats, powders and pastils. Cats, traps, frost, smoke, and the line between familiar and foe. Bring a comb and a sprig of wormwood.